Chapter 475. Longao, I believe you know who I am. Your ancestor, Long Tian, has been destroyed in body and soul. He can't be reborn. As expected, although Longao had guessed that the dragon in front of him was the legendary primordial divine dragon, he still couldn't help but be shocked. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he wouldn't have believed that the legendary primordial divine dragon was still alive. As if he could guess what Longao was thinking, the ancient voice of the primordial divine dragon rang out. Longao, my soul can't hold on for much longer. This is why I'm looking for you. Senior divine dragon, may I know why you're looking for me? Could it be that he wanted revenge? It couldn't be. Longao naturally knew who the enemy of the primordial divine dragon and Long Tian was. It was the supreme existence of the Tianwu continent, Tian Dao. Although he didn't know who Tian Dao was, Longao knew that a person who could kill the primordial divine dragon and Long Tian was an existence that Tian Dao could be. It's simple. Help me and Long Tian take revenge and kill Tian Dao. *CK Longao cursed in his heart. It was true that what he was afraid of came true. Longao did not immediately agree because he knew his own strength. Not to mention killing Tian Dao, even if it was a great emperor martial artist, he was not his opponent. Senior Divine Dragon, I believe you know my strength best. I can't promise you, please forgive me. Nodding, the primordial divine dragon wasn't angry at all. Longao, I know your concerns. You're now the owner of the dragon seal. With your desolate physique and the little guy's desolate physique, I believe you'll be able to reach the same level as me and Long Tian in less than 100 years. At that time, you'll be able to inherit our strength and fight against Tian Dao. As for the outcome, it'll depend on you. The inheritance of the primordial divine dragon and Long Tian's strength? It would be a lie to say that he wasn't tempted by such a temptation. However, Longao didn't agree immediately. After all, this wasn't a small matter. If he made the slightest mistake, he would die without a burial place. Longao, you have already obtained the dragon seal, and you belong to a Long family. This is your duty, you cannot refuse. Can't refuse? Longao wanted to laugh and cry. Before Longao could say anything, the primordial divine dragon said, your strength is still very weak now. So when your cultivation breaks through to the divine Dao realm, I will come to find you again. This time, I am just informing you. With that, the dragon shadow disappeared from the blood pool. Silence. The entire dragon seal space was silent. Longao stood there in a daze, looking at the blood pool in front of him. At this moment, he finally knew why the blood pool was so awesome. The primordial divine dragon was in the blood pool. Longao sighed deeply. He knew very well that the primordial divine dragon had not come looking for him to discuss, but to inform him directly. In the end, the primordial divine dragon did not take him seriously. If he was a supreme Dao warrior, would the primordial divine dragon still dare to act like this? Strength. It was all about strength. Without strength, everything was nonsense. Longao did not reveal the unhappiness in his heart. In his opinion, the primordial divine dragon did indeed have the qualifications to ignore him, but to seek revenge from the heavenly Dao was a little bit suicidal. But things had already come to this point. Did he have a choice? Longao really did not understand. Did the primordial divine dragon have water in his brain? Even the primordial divine dragon and Long Tian could not defeat the heavenly Dao, let alone him. But there was really no other way. Who asked his strength to be inferior to the primordial divine dragon? If the primordial divine dragon were to fight force with force, how could he resist? Helplessly waving his hand, Long Fu said, Master, don't worry. I will do my best to help you improve your strength. When the time comes to integrate with the old master's strength, killing the heavenly Dao will not be difficult. It was easy to say, but Longao would not easily believe Long Fu's nonsense. What kind of joke was this? Killing the heavenly Dao was not difficult. If it was really so simple, why did the primordial divine dragon and Long Tian not succeed in killing the heavenly Dao? But they were killed by the heavenly Dao. Long Fu, I am about to break through to the illusionary divine stage, but I still feel that I am lacking something. Can you help me analyze what I am lacking? Originally, Longao thought that he would be able to break through to the illusionary divine stage. However, what made him extremely depressed was that no matter how hard he tried, he was still unable to break through to the illusionary divine stage. He felt that he could break through to the illusionary divine stage at any time. He was just one step away, but he could not take this step. Master, you are now at the critical point of the illusionary divine stage. You can break through to the illusionary divine stage at any time. Just relying on your strength is no longer enough. Unless you are in a state of enlightenment, you will not be able to break through to the illusionary divine stage. Long Fu didn't continue speaking, but the meaning in his words was already very clear. Hearing this, Longao was also very depressed. It was easy to say, but it was easier said than done to gain enlightenment. Longao did not continue asking. He did not want to stay any longer. He had offended the primordial divine dragon for no reason, and now he had another powerful enemy. Who did he offend? At this moment, Longao could be considered depressed to the extreme. Primordial divine dragon, Long Tian, the heavenly Tao. Everything felt like a dream. Chapter 476. Longao had already broken through the first transformation of the 9 revolving reincarnation technique. The first transformation of the 9 revolving reincarnation technique was the mysterious 9 heavenly transformations. Longao had also reached the peak of the mysterious 9 heavenly transformations. Similarly, the 9 revolving reincarnation technique was only one step away from the second transformation. After comprehending for 3 days, Longao finally understood why he was still unable to break through to the illusionary divine stage. The reason was simple. The root of the problem was the 9 revolving reincarnation technique. Longao had successfully comprehended that if he wanted to break through to the illusionary divine stage, he would have to break through to the second transformation of the 9 revolving reincarnation technique. Although it seemed simple, it was actually extremely difficult. Longao stood up and stretched his back. He did not waste any more time. Who knew when he would be able to break through to the 9 revolving reincarnation technique? Instead of wasting time, he might as well do something serious. At this point in time, the Imperial City suddenly sent an invitation to Longao to the Imperial City alone. When everyone knew about this, they all thought that the Imperial City was crazy. No one would go to the Imperial City alone unless they were courting death. Everyone knew that Longao had killed the son of the Imperial City mayor. Duan He and Longao were in a situation where either one of them would die. The Imperial City must have bad intentions for inviting Longao to go alone. Dragon Sect, Main Hall. Master, the Imperial City must have bad intentions for inviting you to the Imperial City. You don't have to worry about them. Longao had dealt heavy blows to the Imperial City. This had boosted everyone's confidence and made them feel that the Dragon Sect and the Imperial City were on the same level. This situation was both good and bad. Longao knew that he could not stop this from happening. He could only take one step at a time. As for the invitation from the Imperial City, Longao thought for a while and suddenly said, "The Imperial City has made it clear that they will announce to the world that they will not do anything to me if I go to the Imperial City this time." Hearing Longao's words, everyone was taken aback. None of them were fools. Of course, they knew that the master had already made his stance clear. He wanted to go to the Imperial City alone. Once the Imperial City made any moves, how would the master deal with it? Thinking of this, everyone began to persuade the master to give up on going to the Imperial City. He waved his hand. Everyone saw that the master's expression was not good and immediately became quiet. No one dared to say anything. However, everyone's faces were still filled with worry. Since the Imperial City has already announced this to the world, I believe that the Imperial City will not do anything to me. As the saying goes, nothing ventured, nothing gained. I also want to see why the Imperial City invited me this time. Everyone was well aware of the master's personality. Since the master had already made his decision, who could stop him? Because of this, no matter how worried and unwilling everyone was, there was nothing they could do. They could only pray that the Imperial City was a true gentleman and would not go against the master. The news that the Imperial City had invited Longao to the Imperial City and that Longao had agreed at the same time spread throughout the 9 states, including the 3 major forces. Everyone was guessing what the imperial city meant. After all, everyone knew about the grudge between Longao and the imperial city. But now, the imperial city was inviting Longao to the imperial city as a guest as if they were friends. Everyone knew Sima Zhao's intentions. Everyone was sure that Longao would definitely be attacked by the imperial city this time. They thought that Longao would not go, but in the end, Longao agreed without any hesitation. Just this courage alone was unparalleled. It was precisely because of this that everyone was even more aware of one truth. That was, Longao's success was not accidental, but inevitable. Not to mention Longao's talent and strength. Just this courage alone had completely surpassed many people. 9-State Spirit Region. 3rd grade Long Family's main hall. Master, why did the Imperial City invite Longao this time? Long Yin was very curious because the 4 major forces had met to discuss how to deal with Longao. In the end, they parted on bad terms. Because the 4 major forces had suffered heavy losses time and time again. Each of them had their own ulterior motives. No one was willing to be the first to act. Because of this, the 4 major forces kept each other in check and did not immediately attack the Dragon Sect. Because of this, the Imperial City's sudden invitation to Longao made everyone confused. They did not know what the Imperial City meant. Duan Tianfeng was killed, and Duan he was devastated. He wanted nothing more than to kill Longao. So, I can be sure that the grudge between the Imperial City and Longao will not end here. After thinking for a while, Long Maoan continued, I don't know why the Imperial City invited Longao this time, but for some reason, I have a feeling that the Imperial City did not invite Longao to deal with Longao. They have other motives. Master, I have the same feeling. What should we do now? 9-State Spirit Region, 4 major forces. The Eastern Imperial City, the Western 3rd grade Long Family, the Southern Nether Mansion, and the Northern Ethereal Palace had always been fighting openly and secretly. Everyone wanted to destroy the other 3 forces and dominate the 9-State Spirit Region. But for so many years, the 4 major forces could not do anything to each other. As time passed, the 9-State Spirit Region became a scene of 4 major forces fighting for supremacy. But this did not mean that the 4 major forces were willing to live in peace. As long as there was a chance, the 4 major forces would not show mercy. I want to see what the Imperial City means by inviting Longao this time. If the Imperial City dares to play any tricks, I will definitely make the Imperial City unable to bear the consequences. After calming down a little, Long Maoan suddenly asked, Is there any news from the Long family? Long Yin said helplessly, No, but Master, I have received news that the Long family already knows everything about Longao. Now, the Long family has 2 opinions. What are the 2 opinions? The first is that many people in the Long family want to capture Longao immediately and ask him about the situation. If something is wrong, we should kill him immediately. The second is that we should observe the development of Longao first. If he grows well, the Long family will not continue to punish Longao. In the end, they will focus on cultivating Longao. Just as expected, Long Maoan already knew about this, but he still found it hard to believe. Because he knew very well that the reason why the Long family did not act against Longao was very simple. Longao's talent and growth had moved many people in the Long family. This time, they were in big trouble. Master, once the Long family thinks highly of Longao, it will be very difficult for us to continue to deal with him. Nodding, Long Maoan said, This child cannot be left alive. Whether the Long family thinks highly of him or if he grows up in the future, he will become a big threat to the Long family. We must eliminate him. Chapter 477. Long Maoan's intention was very simple. He wanted to cut the weeds and eliminate all future troubles. Even so, Long Maoan did not make a move in the end. After all, the other 3 clans had not made a move yet, which made him wary. Everyone in the Long clan knew that Longao had accepted the Imperial City's invitation. Long Haoshi and Mu Wanfeng, as the representatives, rushed to the Dragon Sect as fast as they could. They were afraid that Longao would leave early. Seeing his grandson, Long Haoshi went straight to the point. He asked impatiently, Ao'er, you've accepted the Imperial City's invitation? Long Ao nodded. Since things had come to this point, there was no need to hide anything. He replied, "Yes, grandfather. I've accepted the Imperial City's invitation. I'll leave for the Imperial City tomorrow." Hearing this, Long Haosher and Mu Wanfeng were shocked. Long Haosher said anxiously, "Ao, I believe you know better than me what kind of existence the Imperial City is. If that's the case, why do you still want to go to the Imperial City?" "You're right. Ao, I know you're very proud, but you can't be conceited. According to the grudge between you and the Imperial City, the moment you go to the Imperial City, they will definitely deal with you." He did not give Long Ao any chance to speak. Long Haosher continued, "You know there are tigers in the mountains. Why do you still want to go to the Imperial City?" Looking at the two elders in front of him, Long Ao did not feel the slightest irritation or dissatisfaction. Instead, his heart was filled with warmth. Long Ao knew very well that whether it was his grandfather or grandmother, they were both concerned about him. Otherwise, the two elders would not be so bored as to come and meddle in his affairs. "Grandfather, grandmother, please take a seat." After the two of them sat down, Long Ao said, "Grandfather, grandmother, I can say with certainty that the Imperial City will definitely not deal with me when I go to the Imperial City this time." Long Haosher seemed to be surprised. He asked, "Why are you so sure?" "Grandfather, it's simple. If the Imperial City wants to deal with me, they don't have to go through so much trouble and announce it to the world." Long Haosher and Mu Wanfeng did not say anything. They just listened quietly. "Grandfather, the grudge between me and the Imperial City will have to be resolved sooner or later, but now is not the time. If we can form an alliance with the Imperial City and deal with the other three forces together, it will be much easier." Long Haosher and Mu Wanfeng seemed to have guessed something. Both of them stared at Long Ao. "Ao, why are you so confident?" "Intuition." "Intuition?" It was actually intuition. Both Mu Wanfeng and Long Haosher were somewhat depressed when they heard Ao's words. They really couldn't understand why Ao was so confident. If there was even the slightest mistake, the consequences would be unimaginable. "Grandpa, Grandma, you don't have to worry. I have confidence." The two of them sighed deeply. Things had already come to this point, and there was nothing they could do. "Ao, I know your character. However, you must promise us that no matter what happens, you must first protect your own life. Do you understand?" Nodding, Long Ao comforted the two of them. After settling them down, Long Ao didn't immediately set off. Instead, he gathered many people and briefly explained the sect's affairs. The night was terrifyingly silent. Long Ao stood quietly on the peak of the mountain, looking at the endless void in front of him alone. Long Ao had already decided that no matter what the Imperial City's invitation was for, he only had one purpose, and that was to form an alliance with the Imperial City. Since going against the four forces, Long Ao had thought a lot about it. It would not be easy to defeat the four forces by relying on his and the dragon sect's strength alone. It was precisely because of this that Long Ao was ready to change his strategy and form an alliance with the Imperial City to deal with the three forces. In fact, Long Ao's intention was very simple. That was to use dogs to fight dogs. When the time came for the Imperial City to deal with the three forces, he would be able to reap the benefits. A cold wind blew. "Ao, it's been hard on you." Without even turning around, Long Ao already knew who had come. He helplessly shrugged and said, "Grandfather, if one day our Long family can be promoted to a first-class family, will the family be able to bear it?" Of course, Long Haosher didn't believe Long Ao's words. He smiled and said, "Ao, I've always only had one wish, and that is for the family to be promoted to a third-class Long family or for a dragon martial artist to appear in the family. Now, it has finally come true." Dragon martial artist. If it was in the past, it would be an unreachable existence for the family. But now, he had become a genuine dragon martial artist. Long Ao knew very well in his heart that his grandfather was already very satisfied with this. Without continuing, Long Ao silently told himself that no matter what happened in the future, he must lead the family to become a Long family and move into the Dragon Valley. At that time, more and more dragon martial artists would appear in the family. "Ao, Have you ever thought that with the current strength of the family and the sect, can you really destroy the four major powers? With regards to his grandfather's intentions, Longao naturally knew clearly. He firmly said, "No matter how many difficulties lie ahead, I will continue to walk forward. I will definitely destroy the four great powers. There will definitely be a place for my dragon sect in the 9 provinces." Dragon sect. Hearing the 2 words dragon sect, Longao was very worried about one thing. That was, if his grandson would slowly forget about the family as the dragon sect grew stronger. Longao didn't want to see that kind of situation. "Grandfather, no matter when, I will always be a disciple of the Long family. This, no matter what happens, will never change." Hearing Longao's words, Longao's body suddenly trembled. He naturally knew what Longao meant by these words. He was very emotional and said, "Ao, grandfather believes in you." Longao's current achievements were no longer something the family could look up to. If Longao chose to distance himself from the Long family, then there was no doubt that the Long family would be attacked from all sides and fall into a state of eternal damnation. However, Longao believed in his grandson. Otherwise, as Ao continued to grow, he would have started to distance himself from the family long ago. However, Ao always thought about the family. Just from this point alone, Ao would not abandon the family. Longao slowly left because he knew that his grandson would go to the imperial city tomorrow. There were many things that he needed to think about, and he couldn't disturb him. Just like that, Longao was the only person left on the mountain peak. He stood there quietly and looked at the endless dark void in front of him. He thought about all kinds of things in his mind, especially the reason why the imperial city had invited him. What did the imperial city mean? Although he didn't know what the imperial city meant, Longao was certain that the imperial city would definitely not do anything to him in the imperial city. Chapter 478. Spirit Region of the 9 States. Imperial City. It wasn't the first time Longao had entered the imperial city, but his identity was completely different. The last time he entered the imperial city, Longao was still an enemy of the imperial city. In order to save his beloved, he resolutely killed the imperial city's young master, Duan Tianfeng. But this time, Longao's identity had undergone a huge change. He was no longer an enemy of the imperial city, but an honored guest invited by the imperial city. Longao's identity change made everyone unable to react, especially the disciples of the imperial city. They didn't know what the sect meant and why they would invite an enemy to be a guest. What a ridiculous thing. Longao was definitely a celebrity in the imperial city now. The moment he stepped into the imperial city, he was recognized. In the blink of an eye, the news of Longao entering the imperial city had spread. Anyone who received the news hurriedly came out, wanting to see the young man who fought against the 4 major forces. With a head full of blood-red hair, even his eyebrows were blood-red. Coupled with his resolute face, Longao looked like a majestic war god. He's really handsome. I told you that Longao is handsome, but you didn't believe me. Now do you believe me? Chrysanthemum, what are you so excited about? Who is Longao? Whether he's handsome or not has nothing to do with you. You're thinking too much. I like him. Bite me. That's right. You're the one who's meddling in other people's business. Chrysanthemum did the right thing. When you meet someone you like, you have to confess. A love-struck fool would exist no matter where one went. Chrysanthemum was also quite beautiful. She liked powerful, handsome guys the most. Now that she finally met one, how could she choose to give up so easily? Ignoring the ridicule and disdain coming from all around, Chrysanthemum directly blocked Longao's path and gently confessed, "You're big brother Longao, right? Big brother Longao?" Hearing Chrysanthemum's voice, whether it was Longao or the surrounding spectators, they all shuddered. They had seen domineering people, but they had never seen such a domineering person. Being confessed in public, Longao was also a little dumbfounded. He wasn't afraid of any difficulties or dangers, but this was the first time Longao had encountered a confession in broad daylight. He didn't know what to do about it. Although Longao was already the master of the dragon sect and had fought against the 4 major forces alone, in the end, Longao was still a young boy who was not even 20 years old. When had he ever encountered such a situation? Brother Longao, I've admired you for a long time. I'm a straightforward person. I like you. I wonder if Brother Longao is willing to accept my love? Too valiant. Longao didn't dare to stay any longer. His body moved with the wind, and under everyone's shocked gazes, he disappeared without a trace. Longao's sudden departure had already made his attitude clear, but even so, Chrysanthemum was still unwilling to give up. It was not only Chrysanthemum, there were many girls around who liked heroes, but they were not as overbearing as Chrysanthemum. Somewhere in the Imperial City, Longao was speechless to the extreme. He had seen valiant people before, but he had never seen such a valiant person. He would rather fight with an expert than encounter such a thing. In the end, he was still a very pure person. Mr. Longao, please. The master has been waiting for you for a long time. He wasn't surprised at all. No matter what, this was the Imperial City. If he didn't know that he had entered the Imperial City, then his position as the Imperial City's city lord would be a little too poor. Since he was already here, Longao didn't plan to hide. He followed the Imperial City's disciples to the Imperial City's headquarters. Inside the Imperial City, He and Kai were already sitting in the pavilion. When Longao arrived, there wasn't any anger or killing intent on their faces. It was as if Longao was really an honored guest of the Imperial City. One had to know that Longao had killed Tianfeng. The entire 9 states knew about it, but He and Kai acted as if nothing had happened. One couldn't help but admire their acting skills. They had already reached the level of perfection. Master Long, we are honored by your presence. Please forgive us for not coming out to meet you. Longao despised the fake smiles of the 2 people in his heart. However, he still had a smile on his face as he said, "This time, I am indebted to the Imperial City for your invitation." After entering the pavilion, Longao, He, and Kai sat down. They picked up the teacup on the table and took a sip. Longao smiled and said, "This is really good tea. Master Long is very knowledgeable. This is top-grade Biluakun. It is extremely rare. I hope Master Long doesn't dislike it." I wouldn't dare. Longao and the Imperial City were sworn enemies. When they met, it was either you die or I die. However, in this strange situation, the 2 sides seemed to be friends. He and Kai didn't mention it. Longao also didn't mention it. "Master may I know why you have invited me this time?" Longao went straight to the point. He didn't want to talk nonsense. He and Kai seemed to understand Longao's meaning. He smiled and said, "All right, since Master Long is a straightforward person, then I won't beat around the bush. Let's be frank. You killed my son, so you should be my mortal enemy." Longao didn't reply. As expected, the Imperial City didn't invite him to deal with him. Otherwise, he would have been attacked the moment he stepped into the Imperial City. There was no need to wait until now, unless the Imperial City had nothing better to do. For the sect, we can let bygones be bygones. Master Long, I believe you have some understanding of the situation in the spirit realm of the 9 states. Since that's the case, I'll go straight to the point. My Imperial City is prepared to form an alliance with your dragon sect to deal with the other 3 forces. When the time comes, we will dominate the spirit realm of the 9 states. What do you think? Master let's put aside our grudges for now. I don't object to a temporary alliance. I just want to ask why the Imperial City chose me. The 3rd-rank Long family, Nether Mansion, and Ethereal Palace seem to be stronger than the Dragon Sect. Regarding this point, Longao could not figure it out. He did not know what medicine the Imperial City was selling in their gourd. Master Long, you don't have to belittle yourself. Your potential and strength are there. I don't need to say more. I believe that if you and I work together, we can conquer the entire spirit realm of the 9 states. When the time comes, we will each take half of the spirit realm and mind our own business. What do you think? Since things had come to this point, Longao naturally wouldn't object. He nodded and said, "All right, since the Imperial City thinks so highly of the Dragon Sect, I agree on behalf of the Dragon Sect. We will now form an alliance to deal with the other 3 forces." I hope we can succeed. The three of them smiled. At this time, Duan Kai, who had been silent all this time, suddenly said, Master Long, I don't know if you have heard of a place called the Soul Break Valley. Longao shook his head. He had never heard of the Soul Break Valley that Duan Kai mentioned. However, Duan he was surprised. He didn't know why his father suddenly mentioned the Soul Break Valley. Chapter 479. Master Dragon, Soul Break Valley is a restricted area in the Imperial City. Even the core disciples are not allowed to enter as they wish. Hearing Duan Kai's words, Longao was even more curious. Since Soul Break Valley was a restricted area in the Imperial City, why did Duan Kai tell him that he wanted him to enter Soul Break Valley? Longao was more or less on guard. No matter what, Soul Break Valley was a restricted area in the Imperial City. If he were to enter rashly, who knew what would happen? As if he could read Longao's mind, Duan Kai smiled and said, Master Dragon, there is a super weapon in Soul Break Valley, an extremely strong spiritual energy. If you can enter it, it should not be a problem for you to break through to the illusionary divine stage. Brother Duan, there is something I do not understand. Since Soul Break Valley is a restricted area in the Imperial City, why does the Imperial City not enter Soul Break Valley to retrieve the super weapon? There is a slim chance of survival. What do you mean by that? To be honest, Master Dragon, Soul Break Valley is very dangerous. If you are not careful, you will lose your life. Hearing this, Longao was even more surprised. After all, Duan Kai's meaning was very clear. Soul Break Valley was very dangerous, and even the people in the Imperial City might not be able to enter it. Master Dragon, when we discovered Soul Break Valley, we also tried to enter it. However, in the end, we were unable to obtain the treasures inside. However, a few seniors did manage to break through in Soul Break Valley. Brother Duan, if you have anything to say, please speak your mind. Master Dragon, to be honest, since we have already joined forces, I hope that you can become stronger. To be honest, with your current strength, you are no match for an illusionary divine stage martial artist. Longao didn't say anything and just sat there quietly. That is why I hope that Master Dragon can enter Soul Break Valley. If you can break through, that would be great. He snorted in his heart. Regarding Duan He and Duan Kai's intentions, how could Longao not know? There were treasures in Soul Break Valley that could allow one to break through. However, it was very dangerous. If one was not careful, one would be doomed eternally. Duan Kai was very cunning. If he entered the Soul Break Valley and survived, the alliance between the Imperial City and the Dragon Sect would continue. At most, he would feel unhappy. But if he died in there, then everything would be fine. He had to admit that Duan He and Duan Kai were indeed sly old foxes. They couldn't defeat him head-on, so they used such a despicable method. If it was someone else, they would definitely not agree. But Longao was a madman. He nodded and said, If that is the case, then I will respectfully accept. When can we enter? Anytime. All right, then let's do it now. I'm going to enter the Valley of Death immediately. Come with me. Hearing that Longao wanted to immediately enter Soul Break Valley, Duan Kai's face lit up with joy. He immediately got up and led Longao to Soul Break Valley. Soul Break Valley, forbidden area of the Imperial City. Ever since the Imperial City had found the Soul Break Valley, very few people had entered it. Duan Kai didn't tell Longao the truth, because once you entered the Soul Break Valley, you would die 9 times out of 10. Very few people were able to come out alive. It was because of this that Duan Kai came up with such a plan. Just as Longao had guessed, Duan Kai had 2 motives for letting him enter the Soul Break Valley. Firstly, if Longao could come out alive, the alliance would continue. Secondly, if he couldn't come out alive, it would be considered as getting rid of a thorn in his side. Outside the Soul Break Valley, Duan Kai suppressed the laughter in his heart and said indifferently, Master Dragon, this time when you enter the Soul Break Valley, you must be careful. I will wait here for your triumphant return. Longao couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense. After a few polite words, he entered the Soul Break Valley. Father, there are treasures and abundant spiritual energy in the Soul Break Valley. If Longao enters and obtains the treasures, or if he really breaks through to the illusionary divine stage, wouldn't we be indirectly helping him? Until now, Duan He still couldn't understand why his father would do this. This time, when his father invited Longao to enter the imperial city, Duan He had already vehemently opposed it. Now, Duan He actually allowed Longao to enter the Soulbreak Valley. If Longao really broke through to the illusionary divine stage and obtained the treasures, wouldn't the imperial city suffer a double loss? Duan He was very wary of Longao. Although Longao was just an illusionary martial artist, Longao's talent and potential were there for all to see. All along, Duan He had strongly advocated for Longao to be killed. Other than being wary of Longao's talent and potential, more importantly, Longao had killed his son, his most beloved son. Duan He would never forget this debt. However, Duan Kai waved his hands and said with a gloomy face, I believe you know what the Soul Break Valley represents. I don't believe that Longao can come out alive after entering the Soul Break Valley. Father, that's enough. If you don't sacrifice your child, you can't trap the wolf. No one in the Imperial City can take away the treasures in the Soul Break Valley. I believe that Longao can't do it either. This time, let's take a gamble. Duan He sighed deeply in his heart. He knew that since his father had already made up his mind, this matter was settled. Although Duan He also believed that Longao would not leave the Soul Break Valley and would definitely die in there. He did not know why, but he had a bad premonition. It was as though Longao could really come out. Father, since Longao is here personally, why don't we just kill him directly? Duan He could not understand this point. There were many illusionary divine stage martial artists in the Imperial City. If they wanted to kill Longao, it would be a piece of cake. Why did they have to do this? Duan Kai said helplessly, if we could, we would have killed him long ago. I received news that the Long family seems to think highly of Longao. If we don't kill him openly and choose to do it now, the Long family will blame us and the Imperial City will be in big trouble. Long family. Hearing his father mention the Long family, Duan He was shocked. He finally understood his father's intention. He wanted to make use of the Soulbreak Valley to kill Longao. By then, even if the Long family wanted to pursue the matter, it would be impossible. The reason why the rank 3 Long family, Serene Hell Mansion and Ethereal Palace are not willing to take action is because of the Long family. However, if the 4 of us can work together, a small Longao will be nothing. It's a pity that we all have our own plans, and no one wants to be the first to take action. This gave Longao an opportunity. Before Duan He could say anything, Duan Kai continued. The Soul Break Valley is a forbidden area in the Imperial City. Longao is willing to enter it, and he can't blame us. By then, even if the Long family investigates the matter, they can't blame us. So, you should understand now, right? Duan He nodded his head. If he still did not understand, he might as well commit suicide. It was because of this that Duan He prayed that Longao would die in the Soul Break Valley. This way, everything would be fine. P.S. Let me tell everyone a piece of good news. After Xiaoji's efforts, from today until next Tuesday, there will be a 5-day trial with 10 chapters per day. Everyone, please tip and vote. Otherwise, if the results don't rise, Xiaoji will have no choice in the future. If everyone tips $1 or $2, it won't be much. Chapter 480. Soul Break Valley, Forbidden Grounds of the Imperial City. The moment Longao stepped into the Soul Break Valley, he was immediately shocked. He had to admit that the spiritual energy in the Soul Break Valley was much more abundant than outside. However, there was a faint air current in the air. Once absorbed, it would directly devour one's soul. That's right, it was not an attack, but a direct devour. Longao did not dare to be careless. He immediately channeled all the energy in his body to resist the air current. Luckily, the air current was not very strong. As long as he was careful, he would not be sucked into his body. After heaving a sigh of relief, Longao slowly walked towards the depths of the Soul Break Valley. Longao would definitely not believe everything that Duan He and Duan Kai said. There were only 2 reasons why he chose to enter the Soul Break Valley. The first reason was that he had entered the Imperial City alone. If he did not agree, he did not know what would happen to the Imperial City. This was because Longao was 100% sure that there was an even stronger existence in the Imperial City. The second reason was that Longao wanted to try entering the Soulbreak Valley. Even if it was a matter of life and death, he wanted to train himself well. Longao was very clear that he had reached a bottleneck in his current realm. If he wanted to break through, he would have to gain enlightenment. Actually, there was another way, which was to train himself through life and death. Once he broke through to the second transformation of the 9 revolving reincarnation technique, he would naturally break through to the illusionary divine stage. Soulbreak Valley. If one did not enter it, one would not understand the meaning of the Soulbreak Valley. When Longao stepped into the Soulbreak Valley, he finally understood why it was called the Soulbreak Valley. The meaning of the Soulbreak Valley was simple. The air current in the surroundings would forcefully enter one's body and start to devour one's soul. Once one relaxed, the consequences would be unimaginable. Unknowingly, Longao had already entered the depths of the Soulbreak Valley. There were rocks everywhere and chilly winds blew, giving one a creepy feeling. Before Longao could react, countless spirits appeared around him. Their jade-green eyes stared at Longao as they rushed towards him. Damn! Longao cursed in his heart. He could clearly sense that the spirit army that suddenly appeared around him was all at the Nihility realm. It would be fine if there were only 1 or 2 of them, but the problem now was that there were tens of thousands of them, and there were even world emperors among them. What did this mean? The blood-sucking manic saber instantly slashed out, bringing with it the power of heaven and earth and the power of lightning tribulation. This was because both the power of heaven and earth and the power of lightning tribulation were the nemesis of ghosts. Wherever the saber light passed, it would always bring about a rain of blood, accompanied by miserable and angry roars. Longao didn't show the slightest bit of mercy because he knew that being merciful to the enemy was being cruel to oneself. If he relaxed even a little bit, he would be devoured by the spirit and die without a burial ground. In a short period of time, Longao had already killed thousands of spirits, but gradually, dozens of World Emperor spirits surrounded Longao. If it was 1 or 2 World Emperor spirits, Longao could still deal with them calmly. But the problem now was that 30 to 50 World Emperor spirits were swarming him. There were spirits everywhere. Longao couldn't dodge, except for a life and death battle. Kill. The blood-sucking manic saber in his hand didn't stop at all. Each slash was faster and stronger than the previous. The saber light was like lightning, constantly slashing in all directions. The spirits weren't afraid of death at all. They were still like moths to a flame, fiercely attacking Longao. Longao cursed again in his heart. He never thought that the spirits in Death Valley would be so powerful. Moreover, they were pouring in endlessly. If this was really the case, when would it end? From all directions, there was an endless stream of spirits, and the number of World Emperor spirits was increasing. Longao knew that if this continued, even if he was not devoured, he would be exhausted to death. What should I do? In Longao's mind, he kept thinking of all sorts of methods to see if there was any way to exterminate the spirits here. In desperation, Longao finally used his self-created martial technique, Heaven and Earth Sorrow. A terrifying tornado swept all the spirits around with the aura of heaven and earth. It was still the same sentence. If there were 1 or 2, 3 or 4, or even a dozen ghosts, once Longao used Heaven and Earth Sorrow, he could definitely eliminate them. But the problem now was that there were ghosts everywhere in all directions. There were countless of them. Even if Heaven and Earth Sorrow couldn't devour the spirits around, Longao couldn't always use Heaven and Earth Sorrow. In that case, it would be strange if he didn't die of exhaustion. Inside the tornado, the speed and strength of all the spirits were greatly reduced. Under the shroud of the aura of heaven and earth, Longao was like a god of war. He began to kill in all directions. Heaven and Earth Sorrow continued to devour the spirits, one after another. It was like a moth flying into a flame. In fact, what made Longao most depressed was not the endless stream of specters, nor was it the appearance of thousands of specters. What made Longao truly depressed was that he could not absorb these specters at all, nor could he refine them into soul slaves. In other words, he could only eliminate these so-called spirits directly. Longao was very clear in his heart that if he could devour these so-called spirits and refine them into power, or refine them into soul slaves, then his strength would definitely increase by several folds. It would also have indescribable benefits for the development of the sect. Thinking about it, if he could refine soul slaves, once he succeeded, this corpse slave army would be terrifying. Not daring to be the slightest bit careless, Longao had just used Heaven and Earth Sorrow, and directly used Heaven and Earth Sorrow for the second time. There was not the slightest gap between the first and the second. The tornado crazily swallowed the surrounding spirits, but the number of spirits did not decrease. There were too many of them. Endless spirits swarmed in from all directions. Longao knew very well that if this continued, the consequences would be unimaginable. Longao really couldn't figure out where these endless specters came from, because as far as the eye could see, the surroundings were a stretch of desolation. To shoot a man, shoot the horse first. To capture the bandits, capture the king first. Longao knew that just killing the spirits wouldn't solve the root cause. The only way was to find the origin. Only then could he stop the spirits from coming out continuously. With a fierce slash, Longao's body also darted out. Everywhere he passed, there were roars and screams. Longao ignored all of them and increased his speed. Longao was constantly looking for the origin, but no matter how he looked, he was still unable to find where the origin was. Could it be that he was really going to be exhausted to death? Of course, Longao wouldn't choose to give up. He killed the spirits that swarmed in from all directions while searching for the origin. Chapter 481. An endless stream of ghosts emerged from all directions. They had no spiritual consciousness and only knew how to attack. It was precisely because of this that Longao seemed even more anxious. The more time he delayed, the more danger he would be in. The blood-sucking blade in his hand was still constantly slashing out. One blade after another, the blade light was endless. Just when Longao was extremely annoyed and didn't know what to do, he suddenly discovered that there was a strange pattern not far away, and these so-called ghosts emerged from this strange pattern. Strange pattern. Longao didn't hesitate at all. He arrived in front of the strange pattern in a few steps, and without hesitation, the blood-sucking blade in his hand had already fiercely slashed out. Boom! Before Longao could react, the blade light that he had just slashed out instantly rebounded, and his body was directly sent flying. His face instantly turned pale, and he finally stopped with great difficulty. After being rebounded by the strange pattern, Longao was seriously injured, and the surrounding ghosts took advantage of this opportunity. Startled, he tried to stop them in time, but it was still a step too late. 7 or 8 ghosts invaded his body and began to devour his soul. Fortunately, he had cultivated a soul attack, otherwise, just one attack would have almost taken Longao's life. The soul attack began to counterattack the 7 or 8 ghosts devouring. Barely stopping, Longao didn't continue to attack the ghosts. He fiercely forced away the ghosts around him and quickly arrived in front of the strange pattern again. This time, Longao didn't act rashly. The blood-sucking blade in his hand fiercely forced the ghosts around him to attack. Longao discovered that as long as the strange pattern flashed, ghosts would appear. Totem power. Totem power? Hearing Long Fu's words, Longao's heart suddenly rejoiced. Immediately communicating with the dragon seal space, Longao went straight to the point and asked, Long Fu, what is totem power? Master, the Sherpatian you met before was an expert of the Wansho sect, and totem power is unique to the Wansho sect. Wansho sect? Longao finally understood that the totem power belonged to the Wansho sect. In that case, why would the totem power appear in the Imperial City's Soul Break Valley? Although he didn't know, Longao was sure that the Wansho sect didn't know that there was totem power in the Imperial City's Soul Break Valley. Otherwise, the Wansho sect wouldn't let the Imperial City go. Long Fu, what should I do now? He had no idea what totem power was. It could be said that he knew nothing. Longao knew that he could only ask Long Fu for help now. No matter what, he had to first deal with the spirits that kept flashing out of the totem. Otherwise, if the spirits kept coming out, even if he was not swallowed by the spirits, he would be exhausted to death. Long to the totem power, to the wand, to the snake totem power. Long Fu did not continue, but the meaning of his words was very clear. Longao wasn't a fool. Of course he knew what Long Fu meant. Not daring to have the slightest hesitation, a dragon roar resounded. Long Chang's huge body suddenly appeared in the air. The dragon roar covered the whole area. Wherever the dragon breath passed, all the spirits disappeared. Fuck. Cursing in his heart. Long Ao never thought that Long Chang would be the nemesis of these spirits. If he had known earlier, he wouldn't have gone through so much trouble, risking his life to kill these spirits. Feeling depressed, Long Ao stopped Long Chang. One man and one dragon stared at the totem on the ground. Totem. Until now, Long Ao still didn't know what kind of power the totem was. But from these spirits, he could see that the totem power of the Wan Shou sect was no small matter. Long Ao's soul entered the dragon seal space and asked straightforwardly, Long Fu, tell me about the totem. Know yourself and know your enemy. You can win every battle. Otherwise, if you don't even know what a totem is, how can you deal with a totem? Master, the totem is the unique power of the Wan Shou sect. According to legend, the totem is a kind of mysterious power that can be achieved through the union of man and beast. Strictly speaking, the totem power of the Wan Shou sect is similar to that of the Long family's dragon warriors. So that's how it is. According to Long Fu, the power of the totem was the same as the power of the dragon warriors. No wonder the Wan Shou sect wanted to replace the dragon clan. If the Wan Shou sect obtained the Dragon Valley, wouldn't they have the power of the dragon totem? In that case, how many people in the world would be able to resist the Wan Shou sect? Long Fu, what did you sense? Master, I just sense that there is indeed a supreme treasure here. Moreover, it is quite evil. If you can obtain it and make good use of it, I believe that this treasure will be of great benefit to you. Long Ao's heart was immediately overjoyed. Regarding treasures, Long Ao never refused. Long Fu, how can I obtain this treasure? Master, this treasure is under the totem, but you have to be careful. If this treasure backfires on you, you will only become a puppet without the slightest chance of survival. Hearing this, Long Ao was startled. After leaving the dragon seal space, Long Ao didn't dare to be careless. After all, Long Fu had just said that this treasure was extremely evil. If it backfired on him, the consequences would be unimaginable. Because of this, Long Ao followed Long Fu's instructions and walked towards the totem step by step. He didn't forcefully break the totem, but relied on the dragon breath in his body and Long Chang's strength to suppress and break the totem's power. According to Long Fu, the strength of the dragon was the nemesis of the snake totem. Only this method could forcefully break the snake totem's power. Long Ao was very clear that his luck was really good. If it was other totems' power, such as the wolf totem or the tiger totem, Long Chang's strength alone wouldn't be able to break it. Sure enough, the dragon force fiercely collided with the snake totem, but there wasn't even the slightest collision. The snake totem was already broken, and a huge black passage appeared inside. Long Ao took a deep breath and glanced at Long Chang. He first sent Long Chang into the dragon seal space. At this time, Long Ao didn't have the slightest hesitation. He took a step forward and disappeared into the totem. Soul Break Valley was very quiet. Chilly winds blew, like a mass grave, giving people a gloomy feeling. Long Ao entered Soul Break Valley this time and accidentally encountered the totem's power. He didn't know whether it was a good or bad thing, but Long Ao already knew one thing, and that was the Myriad Beast sect and the totem's power. In the end, the totem's power of the Myriad Beast sect was similar to that of the dragon warrior with a long family. Strictly speaking, the dragon warrior with a long family was far above the Myriad Beast sect's totem. No matter what, the dragon clan was one of the most powerful existences in the world. Ordinary totems couldn't compete with the dragon clan, unless it was a top-level totem. P.S. Thank you to the top 3 fans of the fan list for their tips. They are Chin 1, Noble Shamade, Brother Holding Hand and Sister Growing Old Together. Thank you for your tips. Little 9 thanks. Chapter 482. Below Soul Break Valley. It was a dark space, like a huge palace. It was hard to breathe, It felt very stifling. Longao did not dare to be careless, because according to Long Fu's senses, this evil treasure could be taken away at any time. Master, since things have reached this point, I will not hide it from you. Nodding his head, Longao obviously knew what Long Fu was going to say. Master, if I'm not mistaken, this place should be left behind by the Wan Shou sect's experts, and the treasure here is called the Death Knell. Death Knell? Hearing Long Fu's words, Longao's heart thumped. Not to mention the power of the Death Knell, just the name of the Death Knell was domineering enough. The Death Knell, born from heaven and earth, is extremely powerful. When the bell rings, death will descend. Long Fu, how can I obtain the Death Knell? Longao was somewhat impatient, because the temptation of the Death Knell was too great. It would be a lie to say that he did not want to obtain it. According to Long Fu's method, Longao had to find the Death Knell first. In the dark space, there was a huge stone placed in the middle. It was purple-red, emitting traces of strange qi. It was the so-called totem power. Divine Tao Aura? At this time, Longao seemed to have sensed something. He was very surprised, because he never thought that there would be Divine Tao Aura here. Of course, he knew what Divine Tao Aura meant. Longao was completely sure that the owner of this place was a Divine Tao expert. Moreover, it was a Divine Tao expert of the Wan Shou sect, a Divine Tao expert with the snake totem power. Divine Tao experts were the strongest existences in heaven and earth. Longao was pleasantly surprised. A treasure left behind by a Divine Tao expert, he could imagine how powerful it would be. In the middle of the boulder, there was a small black bell the size of a fist. Without asking, Longao had already guessed that this was the death knell that Long Fu had mentioned. Long Fu's meaning was simple. If he wanted to take away the death knell, he had to borrow Long Chong's power. Otherwise, he would definitely be devoured by the death knell, and the consequences would be unimaginable. It was precisely because of this that Longao had successfully obtained the death knell with the help of the dragon god's arm. Taking a deep breath, Longao poured his soul into the bell of death. At this moment, an ear-piercing bell sound rang out. It was as if the heaven and earth were about to mourn. It was very terrifying. Not to mention others, even Longao himself felt his heart tremble. It was hard to imagine what would happen if he suddenly used the death knell against an enemy. Dragon Clan's brat, you dare to steal my death knell. You really don't know life from death. This old man wants to see how you are going to take away my death knell. Hearing the sudden voice, Longao was shocked, because he had already guessed who the owner of this voice was. Without a doubt, it was the Thousand Beasts sect's Divine Tao expert, the owner of this place, the owner of the death knell. As expected, just now, when Longao felt the Divine Tao aura here, he had already guessed that this Divine Tao expert might not have completely fallen, and his remnant soul was still there. Now, it was indeed so. It would be a lie to say that he was not afraid. After all, the other party was a genuine Divine Tao expert. Even if it was just a remnant soul, its power was not small and could not be underestimated. At this time, a figure suddenly appeared on the boulder. It was an illusory old man, sitting quietly as if he had never left. What grade of Long family's disciple are you? 6th grade Long family's disciple? Humph, nonsense. The illusory old man suddenly burst out a powerful Divine Tao aura, directly suppressing Longao, but Longao did not resist. Instead, he withdrew his heaven and earth aura. In this way, on the surface, he looked like he was in pain, but in reality, there was no substantial injury. Are you really a 6th grade Long family's disciple? I have no reason to lie to you, believe it or not. Seemingly very surprised, the old man asked, Do you know who I am? Divine Tao. This time the old man was even more surprised and said with admiration, A small 6th grade Long family can produce a genius like you. It's already very good. Boy, are you willing to worship me as your teacher? Without waiting for Longao to speak, the illusory old man continued, As long as you are willing to worship me as your teacher, I can teach you the Totem Tao and let you become a Divine Tao expert, controlling the life and death of the world's spirit beasts. How about it? One had to admit that the illusory old man's offer was too tempting. An ordinary person would not be able to resist. It was precisely because of this that Longao was finally sure that the illusory old man in front of him was a divine Tao expert of Wanshou sect. There was no doubt about it. According to Long Fu, Wanshou sect and the Long family were natural enemies. Wanshou sect wanted to occupy Dragon Valley and form the Dragon Totem clan of Wanshou sect, but this matter could not be realized. In any case, the Long family and the Dragon clan were too powerful. To defeat the Long family was not an easy matter. If it was an ordinary person, they would definitely agree. Worshipping a divine Tao expert as their teacher was something that everyone dreamed of. But Longao was not a human. He shook his head and said, "I am the master of Dragon sect. I cannot worship you as my teacher. Please forgive me." The illusory old man was not angry as expected. He was very surprised and asked, "Dragon sect? You mean to say that you have established a dragon sect?" As everyone knew, there was only one Long family in the world, and all the disciples of the Long family were not allowed to start a new sect. Once they were discovered by the Long family, they would be directly killed. There was no room for negotiation. It was precisely because of this that the illusory old man was very surprised. He did not know whether the young man in front of him was crazy or not. He actually dared to go against the Long family and establish a so-called dragon sect. This was completely going against the Long family. Forgive me for not being able to tell you this. I can only say one thing. The enmity between Wanshou sect and Long family has nothing to do with me. Longao was not a fool. He did not want to be a fish in the moat. Whether it was Wanshou sect or Long family, they were not people that he could contend against. If the two clans fought and he was implicated, wouldn't he cry to death? Nodding his head, the illusory old man said, "You are right. Since you have established Dragon sect, the enmity between Wanshou sect and Long family will not affect you. But this time you trespassed into my forbidden area and took away my death knell. I want to ask, how do you intend to settle this debt?" "Senior, this time I entered Soulbreak Valley because I had no other choice. Since I was able to come here and obtain your death knell, it means that we are fated. Since we are fated, this debt will be much easier to settle. What do you say?" Ha 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 ha. Ha ha ha. Hearing this, the illusory old man suddenly burst into laughter. His face was full of praise. Chapter 483. Kid, I won't kill you just because of your courage. Hearing this, Longao let out a long sigh of relief. Although he was very confident in his own strength, Longao had self-awareness. With his current strength, it was simply impossible to be a match for a supreme Tao martial artist, even if the supreme Tao martial artist in front of him only existed in a soul state. Supreme Tao was supreme Tao. The strongest existence in the world was no joke. Kid, since you don't want to be my disciple, then you can't get my inheritance. Don't you regret it? Without waiting for Longao to speak, the illusory old man continued, I can guarantee that as long as you can get my inheritance, I will make you a supreme Tao warrior. I want to step onto the supreme Tao warrior myself. Nodding his head, the illusory old man did not continue to talk nonsense and said, In that case, I won't force you. Kid, since you already know about Wanshou sect, then I'll get straight to the point. I'm a heavenly god from Wanshou sect's Snake Totem clan. I accidentally fell and had no choice but to seal myself here. Heavenly god? Hearing the other party's identity, Longao was shocked, because he never thought that the illusory old man in front of him would be a heavenly god. If he didn't see it with his own eyes, it would be hard to believe. The 5 realms of Supreme Tao were Nihility God, Spirit Condensation, Human God, Earth God, and Heavenly God. In other words, Heavenly God was already standing at the peak of martial arts, the pinnacle of the continent. Because of this, Longao was a little shocked. The Snake Totem Supreme Tao warrior in front of him was actually at the peak of martial arts, a heavenly god. Senior, you want me to help you find your inheritance? That's right. For so many years, I have always hoped that the disciples of Wanshou sect, especially the Snake Totem disciples, could come in, but after so many years, I still couldn't get my wish. Helplessly shrugging his shoulders, Longao did not speak, because luck played a big part in this. Kid, my request is very simple. As long as you can help me find my inheritance, I will give you the death knell. How about it? The illusory old man had already taken a step back. Such a good thing was hard to come by. But Longao didn't immediately agree. Instead he said, "Senior, if you want me to bring the inheritance to the Wanshou sect, I can tell you now, I can't do it, but I can return the death knell to you." Although he was extremely reluctant, Longao didn't want to provoke the Wanshou sect, not to mention it was the inheritance of a heavenly god. If the Wanshou sect found out about this, it would be very difficult for him to escape. Longao was not an idiot. Of course, he would not play with fire. It was because of this that Longao had no choice but to give up on the death knell. The illusory old man seemed to be a little surprised, but he immediately understood the other party's meaning and nodded in understanding, saying, "When I was expelled from the Wanshou sect, strictly speaking, I was no longer a member of the Wanshou sect. Brat, I only have one request. Help me choose a suitable successor, no matter who it is." No matter who it is? Could it be that even the disciples of my dragon sect can do it? All right, I'll leave the inheritance in your hands. Within a year, you must find a successor. You trust me so much? I trust you. As for why, you don't need to ask me. I don't know either. Perhaps this is what they call fate. Fate? Hearing the word fate, Longao nodded and did not waste any more words. Instead, he said, "All right, I promise you. As long as I find a suitable successor, I will not delay." You've already reached the pinnacle of the illusionary realm? With regards to this, Longao did not hide anything. This was because with the other party's strength, it was impossible for him not to see through his true strength. He said helplessly, "I've been stuck in this realm for a long time and have been unable to break through to the illusionary divine stage." If Longao's words were heard by others, it was unknown whether or not they would suffer the fiercest contempt. No matter what, Longao's cultivation was known to all. It seemed that he had not been stuck in the pinnacle of the illusionary realm for too long. "I've already sensed your body. It's very strange. I've never seen a body like yours before, so I can't help you break through." "I understand." Longao did not feel unsatisfied. After all, he was very clear about his desolate body, especially after cultivating the 9 revolving reincarnation technique. If he wanted to break through, he would have to break through to the 2nd revolving of the 9 revolving reincarnation technique. Otherwise, even a martial artist of the divine stage might not be able to help him. "Lad, this is my inheritance. I hope you can find a suitable successor." Receiving the inheritance crystal, Longao nodded and said, "Don't worry, I will." Until now, Longao still could not believe that he had met a godly spirit who had passed him his inheritance and hoped that he could find a successor. Longao had already decided that the Shinto inheritance would wait until he returned to the sect. He would definitely find a suitable person to accept the inheritance. If that was the case, he believed that in a few years, the first Shinto warrior would appear in the dragon sect. At that time, the 4 major forces would be nothing in front of him. "Lad, I've already passed you the godly spirit inheritance, and I've also given you the death knell. You have to help me settle this matter. Otherwise, you won't be able to bear the consequences." Nodding his head, Longao did not say anything else. Following which, Longao left the dark space. Chapter 484. In the end, Longao decided to give up on the divine Tao inheritance. Longao began to ponder who he should give the divine Tao inheritance to. Longao was a normal person. Of course, he would be selfish. Of course, he would want to give the divine Tao inheritance to Aoshue, his grandfather, or his parents. However, Long Aogong was very clear about one principle, which was that the divine Tao inheritance had to find the right person so that it could display the greatest effect. Longao did not continue to think about the divine Tao inheritance. Instead, he began to absorb the surrounding heaven and earth spiritual qi. Although the 9-cycle reincarnation technique had not broken through, Longao was still very clear about the change in quantity. Outside the Soul Break Valley, in the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. Duan Kai and Duan He seemed to be impatient. In the eyes of Duan He and Duan Kai, the chances of Longao coming out alive from the Soul Break Valley this time was almost zero. However, The two were still a little worried and did not leave for 3 days. Father, do you think Longao can come out? 55. Duan Kai actually wanted to say 19, but at this time, the two's faces suddenly changed. It was as if they had seen the most unbelievable thing in the world. Longao came out. Looking at the young man coming out of the Soul Break Valley, both Duan He and Duan Kai were dumbfounded. The two of them did not know what had happened. Long Zong, you came out? Nonsense. Long Ao cursed the two in his heart. It was all due to luck that he survived this disaster. Otherwise, he would have been completely cheated by the two of them. Although he was cursing in his heart, Long Ao's face was still calm. This was because he knew that if he wanted to ally with the Imperial City, he would first deal with the other three forces. When the time was right, it would not be too late to deal with the Imperial City. The two of you, don't you want me to come out? We do, we do. We are really happy to see Master Long come out. Lying through his teeth, Long Ao's heart fiercely despised him. At this time, Long Ao seemed to think of something and said, the two of you, I didn't find any treasure in the Soul Break Valley. The heaven and earth spirit chi is very abundant, but I still haven't broken through. Sigh. With a deep sigh, Duan Kai and Duan He heaved a sigh of relief after hearing that Long Ao had not broken through to the illusionary divine stage. No matter what, Long Ao's successful escape from the Soul Break Valley was already a huge blow to them. If Long Ao were to continue breaking through to the illusionary divine stage, the two of them would have no choice but to die. Master Dragon, since you haven't found the treasure, it means that your destiny hasn't arrived yet. You can't force it. Long Ao almost laughed out loud in his heart. He had seen pretentious people before, but he had never seen such a pretentious person. It was too fake, but Long Ao endured it in the end. The three of them returned to the pavilion and sat down. Master Dragon, since you have yet to reach the illusionary divine stage, why don't we talk about the alliance first? Old Fox. Long Ao nodded his head and said, no problem. I would like to ask the two of you about the alliance between the Imperial City and the Dragon Sect. What are your thoughts? Duan Kai and Duan He cursed in their hearts. Duan Kai smiled and said, Master Dragon, I believe you know the situation of the four great organizations. It is impossible for them to completely destroy the Class 3 Dragon family, Serene Hell Mansion, and Ethereal Palace. Long Ao nodded his head. He knew this very well. Long Ao did not speak and only listened quietly. He knew that Duan He and Duan Kai had already thought of a plan. Otherwise, they would not have sat down to talk to him. Master Dragon, what I mean is very simple. If the Dragon Sect wants to join forces with the Imperial City to deal with the other three great organizations, they have to do one thing first. What is it? It is very simple. Since Master Dragon has already decided to enter the spirit domain of the 9 states, it is better to do it sooner rather than later. With the Imperial City as a cover, I believe that the Dragon Sect will be able to enter the spirit domain of the 9 states in less than a month. Long Ao immediately understood what Duan Kai meant. It was very simple. The Dragon Sect would move to the spirit domain of the 9 states. As for the location, it would be the so-called City of Sin. There was no problem with moving, but Long Ao had to consider the consequences. Once the Dragon Sect entered the spirit domain of the 9 states, there would be no way out. By then, if the three great organizations and the Imperial City turned against him, he would be attacked from both sides. The consequences would be unimaginable. Therefore, Long Ao did not answer immediately. Duan Kai and Duan He were not anxious at all. They looked at each other and saw a trace of coldness in each other's eyes. If he agreed, it would be very dangerous. The Dragon Sect could be doomed at any time. If he chose not to agree, he would lose a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Should he choose to agree or not? Long Ao did not know what to do. Master Dragon, do you have any concerns? Yes. The strength of the three great organizations is there. If I rashly enter the spirit domain of the 9 states, the three great organizations will catch me like a turtle in a jar. I have no way to resist. Long Ao spoke the truth. Because things had reached this point, if there was a slight mistake, things would become very troublesome. Moreover, the Imperial City was still unknown. In the end, Long Ao did not want to take the risk. If he was alone, he would not care. At worst, he would die. However, the problem now was different. He had the entire dragon sect behind him. Once there was a problem, tens of thousands of people would be killed. He did not dare to take this gamble. Duan Kaisin cursed in his heart, but his face was very calm as he said, "Dragon sect, you don't have to worry about this. Later, I will inform the world that the Imperial City and the Dragon Sect have formed an alliance. If that's the case, Dragon Sect Master, can you relax a little?" Scratching his heart, Longao finally gritted his teeth and said, "Okay, I agree. However, I have 3 conditions. Otherwise, there is nothing to discuss." "Master Dragon, you are too much. We are now in an alliance, not relying on each other. What right do you have to raise 3 conditions?" Waving his hand to stop Duan Kai said, "Say it. I hope Master Dragon will not go too far. Otherwise, even if we do not form an alliance, we will not agree." The more Duan He and Duan Kai acted like this, the happier Longao was. Because only in this way could he be sure that the Imperial City was really willing to form an alliance with him this time, and not trying to set him up. However, he had to be vigilant. The first condition is that the Dragon Sect must enter the spirit domain of the 9 states, and the Imperial City must give up a teleportation formation. This cannot be refused. Otherwise, I would rather not form an alliance. Longao had already thought it through. As long as the Dragon Sect entered the spirit domain of the 9 states, they must first have a teleportation formation. Otherwise, he would rather not enter. Because without a teleportation formation, once the battle started, it would be a big problem to leave safely. He had to think of a way out. P.S. The 6th chapter has been delivered. There is an urgent matter. The remaining 4 chapters will be delivered one by one after the wee hours of the morning. Everyone, please send me your tickets and tips. Chapter 485. No problem. Duan Kai didn't even think about it and agreed. It was because of this that Longao was very surprised. He never thought that Duan Kai would agree so quickly. "Master Long, tell me the remaining 2 conditions." Duan Kai seemed to have expected Longao to raise this condition. Otherwise, Longao would be too weak. The second condition is that if the Imperial City dares to betray the Dragon Sect, I will step into the Imperial City in the future and slaughter everyone. As for the third condition, once we destroy the 3 forces, we will each take half of the world. The normal spirit domain will also belong to the Dragon Sect. There are no problems with the 3 conditions. In that case, the matter of our alliance is settled. What do you think? No problem. Longao didn't continue to stay. After all, the matter of the alliance could be big or small. He had to make arrangements as soon as he returned. Looking at the figure gradually leaving, Duan he couldn't understand. He asked, "Father, are you really going to ally with Longao?" Duan he couldn't forget that Longao killed his son. If his father didn't give him a look, Duan he believed that he would have found someone to deal with Longao. He wouldn't have waited until now. How could Duan Kai not know what his son was thinking? It would be a lie to say that he didn't want revenge. But Duan Kai knew that this wasn't the best time. I know the hatred in your heart. I can tell you clearly that I also want revenge, but now is not the time. Why is that? With the Imperial City's strength, killing Longao isn't difficult. But as the Imperial City's city lord, you have to consider the interests of the Imperial City first and not your own. Do you understand? Duan he seemed to have thought of something, but he still couldn't let go of this hatred. No matter what, his most beloved son was killed in the Imperial City. This was something that he couldn't swallow. No matter how much you can't let go of the hatred in your heart, you have to remember that we have to ally with the Dragon Sect and deal with the other 3 forces first. Father, waving his hand, Duan Kai didn't give Duan He any chance to refute and said coldly, "This matter has been decided. You must always remember one thing, and that is that you will always be the Imperial City's city governor." After leaving the Imperial City, Longao did not linger. However, as soon as he left the Imperial City, he ran into a familiar face, who could be considered a friend. It was because of this person that Longao seemed to be surprised. "Longao, come with me. I have something to tell you." Nodding, Longao left with Long Chun. With their strength and speed, no one could follow them. At the peak of a mountain in the spirit region of the 9 states, Longao, I'm looking for you this time mainly because I want to fight with you. A battle? He seemed to be a little surprised because he had already shown mercy in the previous battle. It was impossible for Long Chen to not know that with his current strength, he was no match for him. Since that was the case, why did Long Chen still want to fight with him? At this time, Long Ao suddenly discovered that Long Chen, who he hadn't seen for several months, seemed to have made a breakthrough in his cultivation. From a world king, not only had Long Chen broken through to the world's sovereign realm, but he had also reached the so-called peak of the world's sovereign realm. But even so, with the difference in strength between him and Long Chen, even if Long Chen's cultivation had broken through to the peak of World Emperor, he still wouldn't be his match. Long Ao knew this, so it was impossible for Long Chen to not know. Long Chen's actions left Long Ao a little confused. Long Ao, I've already gone to the Long family and entered the Dragon Clan's ancestral hall to temper myself. To be honest, I've already awakened my innate supernatural ability, so I want to fight with you. So that's how it was. Long Ao wasn't surprised at all because Long Chun had already said that those on the dragon rankings had the qualifications to enter the Dragon Clan's ancestral hall to awaken their innate supernatural ability. But there were very few people who could awaken their innate supernatural ability. Long Ao never imagined that Long Chun would be able to awaken his innate supernatural ability. This in itself already proved just how great Long Chen's talent was. Long Ao was even more certain that after Long Chun successfully awakened his innate supernatural ability, he would be valued by the Long family and his status would instantly skyrocket. Long Ao didn't feel the slightest bit of envy or jealousy. Instead, he was truly happy for Long Chen. Long Ao nodded. He didn't refuse. After all, exchanging pointers wasn't necessarily a bad thing for them. Long Ao, before we fight, there is something I need to tell you. When I went to the Long family this time, I also asked around about the Long family's plans for you. I finally found some clues. Thank you for the trouble. Long Ao was overjoyed. He was now very concerned about the Long family's situation. No matter what, the Long family was the most powerful existence in the world. It wasn't something that the 4 major forces could compare to. Long Ao, I heard that the Long family has 2 voices. The first one wants to capture you and kill you on the spot. In their opinion, not only did you become a dragon warrior, you even established the dragon sect. You don't put the Long family in your eyes. Long Ao had already guessed what Long Chun had said. As expected, there were many people in the Long clan who didn't like the establishment of the dragon sect. But what could they do? Long Ao knew that since he had decided to establish the dragon sect, he wasn't afraid of the Long family. Otherwise, he wouldn't have established the dragon sect so decisively. The second voice wants to kill you. Moreover, they want to observe you carefully. Once you can establish a place for yourself in the world of the 9 provinces, the Long family won't do anything to you. They might even focus on nurturing you. Focus on nurturing me? Long Ao sneered in his heart. He didn't need the Long family's nurturing. He was very disgusted with the Long family's rule. Long Ao was very disgusted with it. The Long family occupying the Dragon Valley was one thing, but they actually made it clear that disciples below rank 3 were not allowed to become dragon warriors. Who would be willing to accept such a rule? It was precisely because of this that Long Ao decided to start anew and establish the dragon sect. In the future, if possible, he had to leave the Long clan. No matter what, Long Chong had obtained the divine dragon pearl. If Long Chong became the dragon god of the Dragon Clan, then everything would be easy. Long Ao, the Long family has decided to observe you first. Therefore, your performance is very important. I don't care what you think, but I want to give you a piece of advice. No matter what happens, you have to strengthen yourself first. Otherwise, everything will be nonsense. You're fine alone, but you have to think about your family. Unless it's a last resort, it's best not to go against the Long family. It won't do you any good. Long Ao nodded. How could he not know about Long Chen's concern? He naturally understood what Long Chen was trying to say. P.S. I wrote a chapter in 2 hours. I'm too sleepy. Little Nine should sleep first and wake up early tomorrow. There are still 3 chapters left. There will be a total of 13 chapters tomorrow. Chapter 486. Longao didn't continue asking, and Long Chun didn't continue either. What needed to be said had been said. Next, it was their third battle. Long Chun had lost the first battle and the second battle. Although he had already treated Longao as a friend, he still felt uncomfortable after losing so many times. Because of this, Long Chun had gone to the Long family's ancestral hall for the baptism. His bloodline had just awakened and his cultivation had reached the peak of the universe emperor realm. Hence, he immediately came back to challenge Longao. How could Longao not know what Long Chun was thinking? Longao, I hope you will not hold back in this battle. I won't hold back. Long Chun didn't continue to talk nonsense. At this time, Long Chin's whole body had already rushed out. As for his dragon companion, Long Chun didn't mention it from the beginning to the end because he wasn't a fool. Of course, he knew that his dragon companion was no match for Longao's dragon companion. As for this point, it was also the most depressing thing for Long Chen. In the blink of an eye, Longao and Long Chun were engaged in a fierce battle. After more than 10 rounds, there was no clear winner. After more than 10 rounds, Longao was shocked. No wonder Long Chun was so confident. It turned out that his strength had increased greatly. Peak of the universe emperor realm. All along, Longao had not taken any martial artists below the illusionary divine stage seriously, even if they were peak universe emperors. However, it was different now. He had created his own martial technique, Sorrow of Heaven and Earth. With Longao's body as the center, a tornado swept out instantly. Seeing this, Long Chun was shocked. In the end, he did not use his divine ability. In fact, Long Chen's intention was simple. He wanted to see if he could defeat Longao without using his divine ability. However, Long Chun was still in a tragic situation. He was swept by the tornado. The aura of heaven and earth suppressed him. Long Chen's speed and strength were restricted. The aura of heaven and earth disappeared, and so did Sorrow of Heaven and Earth. In fact, Long Chun had already lost without using his divine ability. Both Longao and Long Chun knew this clearly. Long Chun was helpless. He had already lost this battle. He had lost so quickly. If he hadn't used his innate ability, he would have been a corpse by now. Longao, the innate ability I've awakened is called acceleration. As he spoke, a powerful aura erupted from Long Chen's body, and an illusory dragon shadow appeared behind him. Immediately after, Long Chen's speed increased by more than 2 times. What kind of concept was that? Longao was shocked. He was very wary of Long Chen's innate ability to speed up the awakening of his bloodline. After all, speed could often defeat one's strength and realm. Longao did not waste his effort. He knew very well that unless he used his innate superpower, Dragon Roar, it was almost impossible for him to defeat Long Chen. Speed. Longao was very frustrated when it came to speed. Once he encountered an enemy with extremely fast speed, he would be somewhat restricted. Longao's body also erupted with a dragon's breath, followed by a dragon's roar. A giant dragon phantom appeared behind Longao. It was the innate ability, Dragon's Roar. Innate ability. Long Chun, who had successfully awakened his innate ability, naturally knew what Longao was using. It was precisely because of this that Long Chen was almost scared to death. He had no idea what was going on. As everyone knew, the only way for a disciple of a Long family to awaken his innate ability was to enter the ancestral hall for baptism. Then, there would be a 1% chance to see if he could successfully awaken his innate ability. In other words, even if a disciple of a Long family could enter the ancestral hall for baptism, not everyone would be able to awaken their innate ability. 1 in 1,000 was already very good. One could imagine how difficult it was to awaken one's innate ability. Long Chun was sure that Longao definitely did not go to a Long family, nor did he enter the ancestral hall for baptism. If that was the case, how did Longao awaken his innate ability? Long Chun couldn't figure it out. Long Chun didn't dare to think about it because it was beyond his scope of knowledge. Even so, Long Chun didn't choose to give up. Under the acceleration of his innate ability, his speed instantly increased by 2 times. He was like a ghost that couldn't be seen at all. If an ordinary person were to fight Long Chen, they would definitely be defeated or even killed instantly. However, Longao was different. He had the innate ability, Dragon's Roar. A strange power enveloped Long Chen instantly. Long Chen's body was locked. He could even feel that the flow of time around him had changed. What was going on? It could be said that the innate ability, Dragon's Roar, was the nemesis of speed. No matter how fast you were, as long as you were enveloped by the innate ability, Dragon's Roar, your body would be instantly frozen. Longao, I've lost. Long Chen didn't continue the battle because he knew clearly that even if he continued the battle, he would definitely lose. Since that was the case, he might as well admit defeat as soon as possible. Long Chen's heart was filled with unwillingness. However, he knew that he would never be able to catch up to Longao in this lifetime. This wasn't just a matter of talent and potential. It was because Longao was too mysterious. He had awakened his innate ability for no reason. Longao, I'd like to ask, how did you awaken your innate ability? Longao didn't hide anything from Long Chen. Longao smiled and said, it was a fluke. The last time you talked to me about the innate ability, I've been trying to awaken it since I went back. I accidentally succeeded. Speaking of which, I have to thank you. Hearing this, Long Chen was dealt a blow. In order to awaken his innate ability, he had traveled thousands of miles to visit his Long family. He had been ridiculed and ridiculed. Finally, he had succeeded. However, Longao didn't have to put in much effort at all. He had already achieved what Long Chen had painstakingly wanted to do. Comparisons were odious. Long Chen shrugged his shoulders helplessly. He sighed and said, I admit defeat. You're really powerful. Longao, I can say with certainty that with your talent and growth speed, in addition to your current bloodline multiplication divine ability, you'll definitely reach the divine realm in less than 10 years. At that time, who will be your opponent? Longao smiled and didn't attack Long Chen. If Long Chen knew that he had the inheritance of the divine Tao realm in his hands, Long Chen might even have the heart to die. Long Chen, can you tell me about the Long family when I go to the Long family? Longao really wanted to know about the Long family. However, he didn't have the slightest channel. Now that Long Chen had gone there, he believed that Long Chen had a certain understanding of the Long family. No matter what, Longao had a feeling that he wouldn't know when he would start a war with the Long family in the future. Chapter 487. Longao and Long Chen sat on the ground. At the peak of the mountain, a cold wind blew. Longao, what do you think of your strength? Although he didn't know what Long Chen meant by this question, Longao still answered honestly, it's nothing in the continent, but among my peers, I should be able to rank in the top 10. Hearing this, Long Chen didn't take it for granted. Instead, he sighed deeply. His heart skipped a beat. Could it be that his strength couldn't surpass his peers? Shaking his head helplessly, Long Chen said bitterly, if I didn't go to the Long family this time, I would also believe that with your strength and potential, you could surpass your peers without any problems. But now, after thinking for a while, Long Chen continued, Long family. Let's not talk about the experts first. Just the younger generation alone. There are many people who are stronger than you and me. F***ck Long Ao cursed in his heart. Of course, he knew that the Long family was strong. There was no doubt about this. After all, this was publicly known. Even if he didn't admit it, it was useless. However, Long Ao had always been confident in his own strength. With this kind of cultivation speed, he always thought that even if he couldn't become the best in the world, it shouldn't be a problem for him to rank in the top 10. But now? Long Ao, I won't hide it from you. When I went to the Long family this time, I was ridiculed and ridiculed. Because in their eyes, not to mention families like ours, they wouldn't even put a second-grade Long family disciple in their eyes. Before Long Ao could speak, Long Chen continued, if I didn't succeed in awakening my bloodline this time, I believe that I would have been kicked out of the dragon ranking. Regarding this point, Long Ao had already thought of it. Without needing Long Chen to say more, Longao had already guessed that the Long family's dragon ranking wasn't as simple as the outside world said. A world king or world emperor wanted to be on the dragon ranking. Longao knew very well that with Long Qin's strength, it was impossible for him to be on the list, even if he was last. If it wasn't for Long Qin's bloodline awakening, not to mention being on the list, it would be a big problem for him to come back unscathed. Longao, the Long family has already given me the best time limit. 1 year. 1 year later, I will accept the challenges of all the disciples of the Long family. If I succeed, I will continue to be on the dragon rank, and if I fail, I will fail. Long Qin did not continue, but the helplessness in his words was obvious. Longao also let out a deep sigh. As the saying goes, there will always be someone better than you. What he saw now was just the tip of the iceberg of the continent. The peak of the world emperor realm, in the eyes of the outside world, could only be considered as a joke, an enormous joke. Longao noticed that Longao was touched. He suddenly smiled and said, Longao, I absolutely believe in your talent and potential. However, Longao, I want to give you a piece of advice. If you have the chance in the future, if you go to the Long family, you must not casually provoke them. Otherwise, you will be in a lot of trouble. I will not go to the Long family. Longao had already decided that no matter what happened, he would not go to the Long family. Not to mention other things, just the fact that he established the dragon sect, he believed that the Long family would not let him go. Long Chun had just said that there were 2 voices in the Long family. A large portion of them did not want to deal with him, but after all, there was still a small portion that wanted to kill him. If he really went to the Long family, he knew what the result would be. Forget it, it's still early. At least the Long family won't deal with you now. In a year's time, I believe that you can rely on your own strength to occupy a position on the dragon ranking. Long Chun smiled bitterly. Although he was very confident, when he thought of the countless geniuses in the Long family and the fact that there was no lack of monstrous geniuses, Long Chun felt a deep sense of helplessness. Longao, I still have something to do. I will go into seclusion to cultivate for a year. After a year, I will come and find you again. After saying that, Long Chun got up and left quickly. In a short while, he had already disappeared without a trace. Longao did not leave immediately. Instead, he sat quietly on the mountain peak. Long family, dragon ranking, Long Chun, innate ability. Longao went through all of them in his mind. Longao realized that he seemed to have thought too simply about all of this. This was because no matter which voice in the Long family, he actually did not have the slightest right to speak. In the end, he was just a chess piece. Unless he could reach the so-called divine path, especially the heavenly god realm, he would always be a chess piece. There was only one way to get rid of his status as a chess piece, and that was to have powerful strength. Longao stood up and stretched. Just as Long Chun said, the Long family would not deal with him for the time being. In other words, he had enough time to improve his strength. On the day he broke through to the divine path, he wanted to see how the Long family would deal with him. Longao got up and left, preparing to return to the dragon sect. This time, Longao had to be very careful in forming an alliance with the imperial city. After all, it was better to be safe than sorry. No one knew what the imperial city was up to. However, the main reason why Longao agreed to the alliance was that he had originally planned to move the dragon sect to the 9 states spirit domain Sin City. This was because only then could he slowly infiltrate the 9 states spirit domain. Even if there was a war in the future, he would not have to worry about anything. Moreover, the imperial city had sent out a teleportation array. As long as he firmly grasped this teleportation array, he believed that even if he was injured in the future, he would be able to leave immediately. Rank 3 Long family. Seeing that Long Chun had returned and had successfully awakened his bloodline, the entire Long family was jubilant. This was because this was the first rank 3 disciple of the Long family to awaken his bloodline. In an instant, Long Chin's status in the Long family had risen. Great Hall. Uncle, I have returned this time to prepare for seclusion for a year. I hope that no one will disturb me within this year. Furthermore, I would like to advise Uncle that you cannot provoke the Longao. Perhaps the four major forces do not care about the Longao's strength now, but in less than 10 years, I can guarantee that the Longao will grow to a very high level. At that time, Long Chen did not continue speaking, but the meaning in his words was very clear. Chen, we will talk about this in the future. You have successfully awakened your innate ability this time. It is a blessing for the family. The old ancestor has urged you many times. You should go quickly. Long Chen deeply sighed. He knew that his uncle did not take his words to heart. If the family provoked the Longao, they would definitely be punished in the future. At that time, even if he was friends with the Longao, it would be difficult to deal with the aftermath. Without saying anything more, Long Chen turned around and left. After all, the old ancestor had summoned him, and he could not afford to be negligent. P.S. Damn, Qianwen in the group just said that no one could surpass him in gifts. He was embarrassed to continue gifting. Brothers, is there anyone who can surpass him? Little Ju is very grateful. Chapter 488. Dragon Sect. Long Ao had just returned to Dragon Sect and immediately started looking for a suitable candidate. Long Ao knew clearly that the earlier he received the inheritance, the earlier he could break through to Great Emperor or even Divine Tao. There were millions of disciples in Dragon Sect. If he were to look for them one by one, who knew how long it would take? Because of this, Long Ao prepared to choose a suitable candidate from the upper echelons. The first batch was Dugu Bai, Xiajun, Long Patian, and the others. But after selecting and selecting, Long Ao still could not find a suitable candidate. Actually, the Divine Tao inheritance could be given to anyone. However, the right person would get twice the result with half the effort. For example, Dugu Bai wasn't suitable for the Divine Tao inheritance. Even if he could get the inheritance, he could only reach Great Emperor realm. However, if Long Patian was suitable for the inheritance, he might be able to break through to Divine Tao. Because of this, Long Ao would definitely give the inheritance to a suitable candidate. In the end, Long Ao had no choice but to leave Dragon Sect and return to his family. He was going to find a suitable candidate in his family. On the second day after returning to his family, Long Ao was pleasantly surprised to find that Kwang Ao's physique and everything was suitable for the Divine Tao inheritance. If Kwang Ao got the inheritance, he believed that the result would be twice the result with half the effort. Since that was the case, Long Ao didn't continue to hesitate. He immediately found Kwang Ao and asked, Kwang Ao, how do you feel in Long family? Long Ao and Kwang Ao were friends from the beginning. Therefore, Kwang Ao had been staying in Long family. Kwang Ao smiled and nodded. He said with satisfaction, I'm living very comfortably. Brother Long, you've been in the limelight recently. Long Ao smiled and said directly, Kwangao, I've asked you to come here this time mainly for one thing. I'll tell you in advance that this matter is very dangerous. However, opportunities exist side by side. Whether you agree or not is up to you. Kwang Ao was surprised to see Long Ao so serious. He nodded and asked, What is it? Kwang Ao, have you heard of Divine Tao martial artists? Divine Tao martial artists? Kwang Ao was shocked to hear the words Divine Tao martial artists. He nodded and said, Brother Long, of course I've heard of Divine Tao martial artists. It's said that Divine Tao martial artists are the strongest existences in the world. However, they only exist in legends. Legend has it. Smiling, Long Ao said, Kwangao, if I were to say that I've seen the divine soul of a supreme Tao martial artist with my own eyes, and I even have a supreme Tao inheritance, would you believe me? He fiercely swallowed his saliva and said arrogantly, I believe you, Brother Long. Do you mean that you have already obtained the inheritance of the Supreme Tao and will become a Supreme Tao warrior in the near future? Warriors of the Supreme Tao. Domineering thought that Long Ao was very likely to become a Supreme Tao warrior, and his heart beat fiercely. It was simply infuriating. In just 1 year, Long Ao had already grown to such an extent. Who in the world could contend with Long Ao? With a mysterious smile, Long Ao said, I have indeed obtained the inheritance of the Divine Tao, but I am not the one who has inherited it. You're not going to inherit the Divine Tao inheritance? Yes, That's why I'm going to choose someone else to inherit the inheritance. Domineering wasn't an idiot. Of course, he could understand Longao's meaning. Moreover, Longao didn't look for anyone else but him. Could it be that Longao wanted to pass the inheritance of the Supreme Tao to him? Although he had already guessed it, Domineering was still somewhat excited and speechless. Domineering, since you've already guessed it, then I'll also get straight to the point. This time, I've looked for you mainly to pass the inheritance of the Supreme Tao to you. I hope you can inherit it well. However, I'll still say the same thing. Inheriting the inheritance of the Supreme Tao also comes with a certain amount of danger. Although Longao didn't continue speaking, the meaning in his words was already very clear. Brother Long, since you think so highly of me, I'll also get straight to the point. No matter what kind of danger it is, I'm not afraid. Domineering was very clear that Longao chose him because he believed in him. To him, the inheritance of the Supreme Tao was undoubtedly a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Once he missed it, who knew if he would get such an opportunity again in the future? Brother Long, don't worry. Now that I've obtained the inheritance of the Supreme Tao, no matter what realm I reach, I'll protect the Long family and never abandon them. This was what he wanted. Although Longao didn't say it explicitly, he really hoped that Domineering would stay in the Long family. Although Domineering was his friend, Longao wasn't a saint. It was impossible for him to give the inheritance of the Supreme Tao to an outsider for free. However, Domineering was smart enough to say it out in advance. No matter what, he knew clearly what the inheritance of the Supreme Tao represented. Once he obtained the inheritance of the Supreme Tao, even if he couldn't achieve the Supreme Tao, he could at least reach the great sovereign realm. Domineering, to be honest, ever since I've obtained the inheritance of the Supreme Tao, I've looked for many people. None of them are suitable to inherit the inheritance of the Supreme Tao. If there's no accident, once you inherit the inheritance of the Supreme Tao, you'll definitely become a Supreme Tao warrior in the future. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't surprised. Next, Longao directly inserted the inheritance of the Supreme Tao into Domineering's body. The rest was up to Domineering to comprehend and refine. Longao knew clearly that if Domineering wanted to refine the inheritance of the Supreme Tao, he would need at least a few years. However, after a few years, the Dragon Sect would have its first Supreme Tao warrior. He could totally imagine that if the Dragon Sect could have its first Supreme Tao warrior, would the four major forces still dare to provoke the Dragon Sect? Because of this, Longao was looking forward to the day when Domineering became a Supreme Tao warrior. Domineering didn't hesitate. He immediately found a secluded place and started to cultivate in seclusion. At the same time, he started to refine the inheritance of the Supreme Tao. Long family, main hall. Aoer, is what you said just now true? Hearing Longao talking about the Supreme Tao inheritance, everyone was shocked. Following that, they were pleasantly surprised. Although they didn't know what the inheritance of the Supreme Tao was, they were shocked to hear that the Supreme Tao warrior was the strongest existence in the world. Longhausher and the others didn't seem to understand why Ao would give the inheritance of the Supreme Tao to Domineering. In everyone's opinion, although Domineering was Longao's friend, he wasn't a disciple of the Long family. If he fell out with them in the future, wouldn't they suffer a double loss? How could Longao not know what everyone was thinking? He said firmly, I believe in my friend and I believe in Domineering even more. This matter ends here. Grandfather, don't leak this matter out. Otherwise, we will be in big trouble. Longao knew clearly that once the inheritance of the Supreme Tao was leaked out, not to mention the four major forces, just the Wanshou sect, Heaven and Earth sect, and the Long family would interfere. Especially the Wanshou sect. No matter what, this Supreme Tao warrior was from the Wanshou sect. Therefore, to avoid trouble, it was best not to leak this matter out. After meeting with Aoshue and his parents, he left the clan. No matter what, he still had to make preparations. This alliance with the royal city was no small matter. He couldn't be careless. Otherwise, the one who would suffer in the end would be him. As soon as he returned to the Dragon Sect, Longao immediately gathered all the higher-ups of the Dragon Sect, including Dugu Bai, Snake Emperor, Xiajun, Longao, Ghost King, and the others. Getting straight to the point, Longao roughly explained his thoughts and asked, "What do you think?" "Master, this method is workable." With Snake Emperor's approval, everyone expressed that they had no objections. This way, the dragon sect would be divided into two parts. One part would go to the spirit realm of the 9 states and form an alliance with the royal city, and the other part would stay to expand the sect's strength. Before returning, Long Ao had already thought about it. Uncle Ao, Elder Snake will oversee the dragon sect and develop the sect's strength. Big Brother Dugu and Big Brother Patian will follow me to the spirit realm of the 9 states. The rest will stay. Master, are you going to bring the corpse slave army with you this time? Snake Emperor was most concerned about this because he had seen the terror of the corpse slave army with his own eyes. Once the master took the corpse slave army with him, it would be very difficult to develop the sect's strength. At least, it would be 2 or 3 times more difficult. How could everyone not know what Snake Emperor meant? However, no one said anything because everyone knew that Snake Emperor was doing this for the sect. Everything would depend on the master. Elder Snake, this time I will only bring 1,000 ordinary disciples to the spirit realm of the 9 states. As for the others and the corpse slave army, they will all stay in the sect. You only need to do one thing, and that is to conquer the entire 9 states in the shortest time possible, not taking the corpse slave army. Hearing this, Snake Emperor was instantly delighted. With the corpse slave army, Snake Emperor had full confidence that he could lead the corpse slave army to conquer the 9 states. Master, don't worry. Within a year, I will lead the corpse slave army to conquer the 9 states. The Snake Emperor ignored the disciples of the dragon sect. Sweeping through the 9 states was too dangerous. If they chose to fight head-on, the losses would be too great. With the help of the corpse slave army, the losses would be reduced to 0. Why not? Long Ao had already decided that when he went to the spirit realm of the 9 states, he would go to the dark forest and create a new corpse slave army. At that time, even if the imperial city wanted to play tricks, he would at least have the corpse slave army to stop them. Long Ao had full confidence in the corpse slave army that he had created. An undying body that could fight against 10,000 people was no joke. In the following time, Long Ao, Snake Emperor, and Ghost King discussed the sex matters until 3 days later. Long Ao brought Dugu Bai, Long Patian, and 1,000 disciples and left the dragon sect for the spirit realm of the 9 states. They did not hide at all. The imperial city and the dragon sect formed an alliance. The first reaction of everyone who heard the news was that they did not believe it because everyone knew that Long Ao and the imperial city had always been enemies. It was either you die or I die. Since that was the case, how could Long Ao and the imperial city form an alliance? Just when everyone was in disbelief, the imperial city and the dragon sect announced to the world at the same time that the imperial city and the dragon sect had officially formed an alliance. Since then, no one had the slightest doubt, because since the imperial city and the dragon sect had announced to the world, this matter was absolutely true and would not change. It shocked the world. The alliance between the dragon sect and the imperial city completely shocked the world. Until now, everyone finally understood that there were no eternal enemies in the world, only unchanging interests. Although no one knew why the imperial city and the dragon sect had formed an alliance, everyone knew that the 9 states had become even more chaotic. The other 3 major forces, the Nether Mansion, Ethereal Palace, and the third-rank Long family, chose to remain silent about the alliance between the imperial city and the dragon sect. Thus, the spirit realm of the 9 states became even more turbulent because no one knew what the imperial city and the dragon sect were planning. The spirit realm of the 9 states had 4 major forces: the eastern imperial city, the western third-rank Long family, the southern Nether Mansion, the northern Ethereal Palace, and now the Sin City, which was the so-called dragon sect. Chapter 490. The Imperial City had a total of 3 teleportation formations, and one of them was given to the dragon sect. With their own teleportation formation, it would be much more convenient to enter the spirit domain of the 9 states. Long Ao brought the dragon sect into the spirit domain of the 9 states. Soon, They arrived at the city of Sin and settled down temporarily. Spirit domain of the 9 states. Rank 3 Long family. Main hall. Master, now that the Imperial City and the Dragon Sect have formed an alliance, it seems like they want to deal with us. What should we do? Long Yan's face was extremely gloomy because he never thought that the Imperial City and the Dragon Sect would suddenly form an alliance. Now, things were getting troublesome. Who knew what the Imperial City and the Dragon Sect were thinking? The Dragon Sect was easy to deal with. As long as the 4 forces were determined to destroy the Dragon Sect, it could be done at any time. But the Imperial City and the Dragon Sect had formed an alliance. With the support of the Imperial City, it would not be easy for the 3 forces to continue destroying the Dragon Sect. Humph, there's no need to be nervous about this. You and I both know the grudge between the Imperial City and Longao. The Imperial City is willing to form an alliance with the Dragon Sect? I don't believe it. But Master, waving his hand, Long Maoan said, let's wait and see. The rank 3 Long family, Nether Mansion, and Ethereal Palace did not care about the alliance between the Imperial City and the Dragon Sect. It seemed like they did not care about the alliance at all. But after thinking about it, it was understandable. The Dragon Sect had just been established. How could the Imperial City alone be a match for the 3 forces? The 2 sides were not comparable at all. Longao was extremely excited about the attitude of the 3 forces. This was the effect he wanted. The Imperial City and the Dragon Sect were in an alliance in name, but in reality, they were doing their own thing. The Imperial City only gave out a teleportation formation, the City of Sin. As soon as they entered the City of Sin, Longao immediately found the 2 half-saints and handed over the matters of the City of Sin to the 4 of them. Then, Longao entered the Dark Forest and prepared to create an army of corpse demons in the shortest time. At least, it could ensure the safety of the City of Sin. The Dark Forest was a paradise for spiritual beasts and hell for warriors. Under normal circumstances, no one would enter the Dark Forest unless they wanted to hunt spirit beasts and obtain beast cores. Otherwise, no one would be so bored as to cause trouble for themselves. Longao was now a peak world emperor. As long as he did not encounter a saint beast, he could almost kill them all. Longao wasn't polite this time. He prepared to create an army of 10,000 World King spirit beasts and World Emperor spirit beasts. In other words, when Longao entered the Dark Forest, he only wanted to kill World King spirit beasts and World Emperor spirit beasts. As for the lower-level spirit beasts, he didn't care about them at all. Tianzhou, Long family, Back Mountain. In a secluded cave, domineering pride sat quietly on the ground, refining the divine Tao inheritance in his body. From the beginning to the end, Kuang Ao was in a state of extreme excitement because he knew clearly that once he refined the divine Tao inheritance in his body, he would be able to break through to the great Emperor realm at the very least. If he could break through to the divine Tao realm, he would be like a carp leaping through the dragon's gate. Supreme Tao martial artists were existences that stood at the pinnacle of martial arts. Didn't that mean that once he refined the divine Tao inheritance, he would be able to stand at the pinnacle of martial arts and look down on the heavens? In domineering pride's heart, he was actually very grateful to one person, and that was Longao. Domineering pride knew clearly that if it wasn't for Longao, he wouldn't have been able to obtain the divine Tao inheritance. In this lifetime, he wouldn't have been able to break through to the divine Tao realm. He wouldn't even be able to break through to the great Emperor realm. Sitting quietly in the cave, domineering pride wholeheartedly refined the divine Tao inheritance in his body. At this moment, a burst of cold laughter rang out, scaring domineering pride. He said vigilantly, "Who is it? Come out if you have the ability." "Humph, with just you?" In domineering pride's shocked gaze, he realized that his body was no longer under his control. He didn't know what had happened at all. In the blink of an eye, domineering pride's soul was taken over and replaced with a divine soul. Ha 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 ha, I've finally been reborn. Kacha. Before the divine soul could finish rejoicing, a terrifying energy suddenly appeared from the ground and enveloped him. Feeling this terrifying aura, the illusory old man seemed to have thought of something and shouted in fear, "Impossible! This is impossible! Without giving the divine soul any chance, it was directly absorbed by the energy from the ground. Domineering Pride's soul was instantly restored. What a terrifying energy! It can even devour the divine soul of a supreme Tao martial artist. Domineering Pride already knew what had happened. He was devoured by his divine soul, and his divine soul was devoured by a mysterious energy. In other words, this mysterious energy was at least at the divine Tao realm. There was a supreme Tao martial artist in Longao Peak? Impossible. Domineering Pride had stayed here for a long time. It was impossible that he didn't know. Could there really be a super supreme Tao martial artist in Longao Peak? Not daring to hesitate, Domineering Pride didn't even inform Long Haosher and the others. He quietly left the Long family. His intuition told him that this was no small matter. He had to inform Brother Long as soon as possible. In just 3 days, Long Ao had killed over 100 World King and World Emperor spirit beasts. According to Long Fu's refining speed, it would take several days. It was also because of this that Long Ao left the Dark Forest and returned to Sin City. Just as he stepped into Sin City, Long Ao already knew that Domineering Pride had arrived. Long Ao was puzzled. He didn't know why Domineering Pride had come here. After all, under normal circumstances, Domineering Pride should have gone into seclusion to refine the supreme Tao inheritance after obtaining it. Filled with curiosity, Long Ao returned to the City Lord Mansion. Brother Long, things have become troublesome. Speak slowly. What happened? Domineering Pride didn't dare to be negligent. He recounted everything that happened in the cave, without missing a single detail. After he finished, Domineering Pride deeply sighed and said, I can say with certainty that within Long Ao Peak, there must be an even more powerful supreme Tao martial artist. Otherwise, it would be impossible for them to devour divine souls. Long Ao nodded. His expression was dignified. This was because he never imagined that there would be a supreme Tao martial artist at Long Ao Peak. If this was true, then things would truly be troublesome. No matter what, the Long family was currently at Long Ao Peak. Long Ao wasn't sure whether the supreme Tao martial artist at Long Ao Peak was a true body or a divine soul. Whether it was the true body or divine soul, since they could devour the divine soul of a heavenly god. This proved just how terrifying this supreme Tao martial artist was. Long Ao could completely guess that the strength of this supreme Tao martial artist had reached the peak of the heavenly god realm. Peak of the heavenly god realm, an existence that stood at the pinnacle of martial arts. Long Ao Peak actually had such a powerful supreme Tao martial artist. This was something that no one could have imagined. Chapter 491. Brother Long, what should we do now? Kwang Ao was terrified. If it wasn't for this supreme Tao expert devouring the supreme Tao inheritance, his soul would have been destroyed long ago. However, domineering arrogance was still unwilling because he had already obtained the inheritance of the divine Tao. If he were to disappear just like that, not to mention him, he believed that no matter who it was, they would have the same expression. Supreme Tao inheritance. Thinking that he was so close to the supreme Tao expert, Kwang Ao cursed in his heart. Long Ao knew what Kwang Ao was thinking and said, It's fated. There's no need to force it. What's yours will always be yours. If it's not yours, it's useless no matter how hard you try. After thinking for a while, Long Ao said, Don't be impatient. Since this supreme Tao expert didn't do anything to us, I believe he doesn't have any ill intentions. Let's wait and see. Wait and see? Domineering arrogance was very worried. No matter what, the other party was a genuine supreme Tao martial artist. He believed that with a move of his finger, he could easily exterminate everyone in the Long family. Since you're here, stay and help me. I'm going back. Brother Long, you must be careful. It's fine. Before he left, Long Ao found the 2 half-sages, Dugu Bai and Long Patian. He went straight to the point and said, Something happened in the clan. I have to rush back immediately. I'll leave Sin City's matters to you too. Seeing the master so serious, the 4 knew that something big must have happened in the Long family. Dugubai asked worriedly, Master, what happened? Yes, why don't we go back with you? Longao waved his hand and said, "It's fine. I can handle it myself. You guys just have to help me manage Sin City." The four knew the master's character very well. Once he decided on something, it was almost impossible to change it. "Remember, no matter what happens in the Imperial City, you guys just have to say that I'm not here and wait for me to come back. If the Nether Mansion, Ethereal Palace, and Long family attack, you guys can choose to defend." "Master, we know what to do." With regards to the four of them, Longao was not worried at all. Without further ado, Longao stood up and left Sin City. On the surface, Longao did not seem to be in a hurry, but in his heart, he could not wait any longer. Just like what Domineering Ao had said, this expert of the Longao Peak was a supreme Dao martial artist after all. Just by moving his finger, he could easily annihilate the entire clan. It was precisely because of this that Longao couldn't wait to return to his family. No matter what, he had to find out what had happened. Why would a supreme Dao warrior suddenly appear in Longao and be able to devour the divine soul of a divine realm warrior? If Domineering hadn't said it himself, Longao wouldn't have believed it at all. "I hope you are really not afraid. When the time comes, let's have a competition and see who can kill more people. What do you think?" F***CK. He's simply crazy. Whether it was Feng Wui or Lu Bumming, both of them cursed in their hearts. But they really did not dare to gamble and could not gamble. If they were unlucky and let this person escape, the consequences would be unimaginable. But things had already come to this point. If the two of them retreated in the face of difficulties, wouldn't they be ridiculed by the world? This time, the two saints intercepted Longao halfway. It was a very secretive thing in itself, because Longao and the Ethereal Palace had a 1-year agreement. The two of them intercepted him halfway, which was a shameless act in itself. "Longao, what do you want?" "Ha ha ha, what do I want?" As if he had heard the funniest thing in the world, Longao looked up to the sky and laughed. His laughter was full of contempt and ridicule, while Feng Wui and Lu Bumming's faces became even colder. "You intercepted me halfway, and now you ask me what do I want? I want to ask, what do you want? You violated our 1-year agreement, which is already very shameless. I didn't expect you to be even more shameless." Chapter 492. Longao. The winner is the king and the loser is the bandit. Waving his hand, Longao did not give the two any chance to talk nonsense. "The winner is the king and the loser is the bandit. That's right, and I agree with it. But your behavior is shameless to the extreme. Since you are despicable people, why did you agree to the 1-year agreement?" Whether it was Feng Wui or Lu Bumming, they were speechless by Longao's question and did not know how to answer. No matter what, they were in the wrong in this matter. The 1-year agreement was made by the two of them and Longao in the Ethereal Palace. But in just over a month, they violated the 1-year agreement. This time, Feng Wui and Lu Bumming had no choice but to make such a decision. The two of them had never thought that Longao's potential would be so great. Adding to the fact that the Imperial City had suddenly turned against them, once Longao was given enough time to develop, the two of them found it hard to imagine just how far Longao would grow. Because of this, the two of them finally chose to intercept and kill him halfway. The two of them knew very well that once they successfully killed Longao, all the trouble would disappear and the Jiuzhou spirit region would return to its previous state. In the end, the culprit was Longao. Therefore, Longao would undoubtedly die. But the two of them were not fully confident. Two saints working together were not confident to kill a peak world emperor. If this matter was spread out, it would definitely be a laughingstock. But for some reason, the two of them just did not have confidence. "Longao, if I can't defeat you within 10 moves, Dragon Sect and Ethereal Palace will develop separately within a year. After a year, we will fight to the death. How about it?" No. Longao was too lazy to look down on them. Ethereal Palace had taken all the good things. There was no such thing as a free lunch in the world. "Feng Wui, Lu Bumming, let's be frank. I know what you two mean. You want to kill me and get rid of all future troubles." Feng Wui and Lu Bumming didn't say anything. With a cold snort, Longao continued, "Since that's the case, let's cut the crap. If I can take 10 moves from you, you have to promise me one thing. If I can't, you don't have to do anything. I'll kill myself right here." The two saints were surprised to hear Longao's words. They couldn't figure out what gave Longao such confidence. Not to mention a pinnacle world emperor martial artist. Even a pinnacle half-saint martial artist might not be able to take 10 moves from a saint. He had full confidence in the two of them. Because of this, Lu Buming replied, "No problem. Who do you want to choose?" "You then. You don't look like a good person. You have a fat head and big ears. You look like you're asking for a beating." Lu Buming couldn't stand being scolded, but he knew that he couldn't be fooled and give the other party a chance to take advantage of him. Feng Wui retreated to one side, while Long Ao concentrated. Although 10 moves could be completed in the blink of an eye in a battle between two martial artists, Long Ao didn't have full confidence that he could take 10 moves from the other party. If he couldn't, his life would be in danger. "Long Ao, Long your grandfather." Without giving Lu Buming the slightest chance to speak, Long Ao took a big stride and rushed out. Before he arrived, the terrifying aura of heaven and earth had already suppressed him. He used his self-created martial technique, Sorrow of Heaven and Earth. The aura of heaven and earth. Lu Buming already knew that Long Ao had condensed the aura of heaven and earth. With some precautions, he could resist it. But what Lu Buming didn't expect was that Long Ao's martial technique was so powerful. Long Ao was like a huge tornado, sweeping around. In an instant, Lu Buming was swept into the tornado. Inside the tornado, Long Ao attacked one move after another. Before Lu Buming could react, he directly used Blood Drinker, devouring the heavens. The terrifying power of the saber slashed out like a meteor. Lu Buming was shocked. Lu Buming really didn't expect Long Ao's offensive to be so fierce. He didn't give him the slightest chance at all. He didn't even release his Saint Chi. Lu Buming didn't dare to be careless and dodged in time. He had to admit that the speed of a saint was very fast, but even so, he still brushed past the saber light. Cracks appeared in the surrounding space caused by the saber light, causing Lu Buming to roll and crawl. He was almost swallowed by the saber light. Rolling and crawling, he rolled out of the tornado and looked at the tornado in front of him in a daze. Until now, Lu Buming still didn't know what had happened. Although he didn't want to admit it, Lu Buming knew very well that if it was a normal battle, he would have lost. He had to admit that Long Ao was really strong. Fortunately, the gap in cultivation realm was difficult to make up for, otherwise, he would have been killed just now. Not only Lu Buming, but even Feng Wui, who was watching the battle, was deeply shocked. He also didn't know what had happened. Why did Lu Buming roll and crawl out? "Brother Lu, are you okay?" Before Lu Buming could ask, the tornado had disappeared and Long Ao's figure appeared. He looked at the saint in front of him with a sneer, without the slightest fear, and said, "Lu Buming, how do you feel?" "Long Ao, you don't have to be so arrogant. It was just 2 moves. If you can take the other 8 moves, I will kowtow to you and call you grandfather." "Call what? Grandfather?" Lu Buming definitely wouldn't be fooled if it was any other time. But now, Lu Buming's state of mind had obviously changed. After all, he was a saint expert who was almost killed by a world emperor. Not to mention others, even he himself began to despise himself a little. Amazing! Feng Wui sighed in his heart. He had to admit that Long Ao was indeed a rare genius. It was precisely because of this that this boy couldn't be left alive. Otherwise, there would be endless trouble in the future. Seemingly knowing that he had been fooled, Lu Buming didn't continue to talk nonsense in anger. His body erupted with Saint Chi, trying to use it to suppress Long Ao. If it was an ordinary world emperor, Lu Buming believed that Saint Chi could completely suppress Long Ao, but it seemed a little inadequate to suppress Long Ao. After all, Long Ao had the imposing manner of heaven and earth, a powerful imposing manner that was superior to Saint Chi. The imposing manner of heaven and earth couldn't suppress the power of Saint Chi, but it could suppress the imposing manner of Saint Chi. Just as Lu Buming released his imposing manner, he seemed to have thought of something and his face turned bitter. He wanted to withdraw it, but it seemed to be too late. With his imposing manner firmly suppressed, Longao changed from passive to active and rushed out again. This time, it wasn't his self-created martial skills, heaven and earth's sorrow or devour blood, but his bloodline awakened innate divine ability, dragon roar. Innate divine ability, dragon roar. A loud dragon roar resounded, instantly resounding through the world. At this time, a huge illusory dragon shadow suddenly appeared behind Longao, vicissitudes of life and majesty. Chapter 493. Innate Divine Ability, Dragon's Roar. The ancient dragon's roar resounded through heaven and earth, and a strange power instantly enveloped Lu Buming. Innate divine ability. Feeling this terrifying power enveloping them, both Feng Wui and Lu Buming's faces changed abruptly, as if they were in disbelief. Both of them knew very well what innate divine abilities represented. According to legend, once a disciple of the Long family enters the Long family's ancestral hall for baptism, their bloodline will awaken innate divine abilities, and their strength will increase greatly. However, Longao did not have the opportunity to enter the Long family's ancestral hall for baptism. It was because of this that both of them could not figure out how Longao could have innate divine abilities. Lu Buming was instantly enveloped by the innate divine ability due to his carelessness. Lu Buming found that his body was locked, and the flow of time around him had changed. He had no idea what was going on. Not daring to be careless, Lu Buming channeled all the power in his body to break free from this power. A saint was a saint, and innate divine abilities did not seem to be of much use. Longao used his innate divine ability, Dragon's Roar, not to defeat or kill Lu Buming, but to stall for time. According to their agreement, as long as he could withstand 10 moves, he would be considered the winner. 10 moves. It might seem like a simple task, but it was impossible for him to persevere through it. However, after using heaven and earth's sorrow and devour bloodthirst, and then using his innate divine ability, Longao could be considered to have stalled for 7 moves, and there were only 3 left to win. What Longao could think of, Feng Wui and Lu Buming could also think of. After being tricked for 7 moves in a row, and he did not even have the chance to react, Lu Buming was extremely depressed. As a saint, he was actually tricked by a world emperor martial artist consecutively. If this matter were to spread, he would definitely be ridiculed. Longao, I'd like to see how you're going to withstand the last 3 moves. Idiot. Not bothering to talk nonsense, Longao continued to strike first. This time, Longao did not use his so-called innate divine ability, nor did he use heaven and earth's sorrow, but instead took out the bell of death from his arms. His soul power entered the bell of death. At this time, a deep and strange bell rang, spreading in all directions, rolling and long and deep. Death knell. Ever since Longao obtained the death knell, this was the first time he used it. As for how powerful it was, he had no idea. However, Longao was sure of one thing, and that was that the death knell was a supreme treasure of a supreme Tao martial artist. Just by thinking about it, he knew that its power would not be weak. The bell of death rang out. Once one was infected by it, it would be like a hammer smashing into one's soul. Saints were no exception. Lu Buming was taken aback. He felt as if his soul had been struck hard. Fortunately, he had the protection of his Saint Qi. Otherwise, this strike alone would have been enough to kill him. Whether Longao was a human or not, Lu Buming was really afraid of him at this moment. This was because Longao had used strange moves one after another. Lu Buming and Feng Wui were very clear in their hearts that a semi-sage expert would have been killed without exception if they had been careless. Feng Wui and Lu Buming joined forces to release their Saint Qi, and the sound of the death knell was instantly extinguished. However, the two of them had violated the agreement. According to the agreement, this was a battle between Longao and Lu Buming. Feng Wui could not intervene. But what was the result? 8 moves had passed, and only 2 moves were left. However, Longao looked at the two in front of him with a sneer. He did not speak, but Longao's face was full of ridicule and contempt. Feng Wui and Lu Buming cursed Longao fiercely in their hearts. No matter what, they had violated the agreement first this time. However, They had no choice but to do so. After all, the sound of the bell just now was too terrifying. If they did not take action, who knew what would happen next? Feng Wui, Lu Buming. I wonder if this counts as my victory? Nope. Longao had already guessed that the two of them would say this. He had seen shameless people before, but he had never seen such disgusting and shameless people. They had violated the agreement first, but they acted as if they were right. It was disgusting to see them. Longao, I released my chi just now because I was anxious. Now that 9 moves have passed, there is only 1 move left. As long as you can withstand the 10th move, you win this battle. Longao did not continue to talk nonsense. He knew that it would not be easy to withstand Lu Buming's last move even if he used all his trump cards. This time, Lu Buming did not release his Saint Chi. No matter what, his opponent had the heaven and earth Chi. Even if he released his Chi, it would be useless. It was precisely because of this that Lu Buming rushed out like an arrow. Before he arrived, his terrifying fist force had already arrived. All the strength in his body was gathered on his fists. In this case, Longao could only choose to meet force with force. He also punched out with both fists. At this time, the 2 fists collided fiercely. The fist force scattered and collided with each other. When the 2 fists collided, Longao's face suddenly changed and he cursed, "Shameless thing." It turned out that this time, Lu Buming's attack was not just his own strength, but also Feng Wui's. The full strength attack of 2 saints, one could imagine how powerful it was. Longao knew that the 2 of them were shameless, but he never thought that the 2 of them would be shameless to this extent. They clearly agreed that one of them would fight, but what happened in the end? This time, Feng Wui suddenly made a move and gathered all his power into Lu Buming's body. It could be considered as a gamble. Since things had developed to this point, they could not let Longao continue to live. Otherwise, not to mention their face, just the other party's potential and room for development was enough to deter them. In order not to cause trouble for themselves in the future, the 2 of them finally chose this move. No matter what happened, even if they were laughed at in the future, as long as they could kill Longao. Longao could not resist the punch of 2 saints at all. With a loud bang, Longao's whole body flew out. In midair, he vomited blood and his body trembled. It was obvious that he would not survive. Whether it was Feng Wui or Lu Buming, both of them had full confidence in their joint punch. Not to mention a little world emperor. Even a warrior at the peak of the half-saint realm couldn't resist it. Even a saint would die as long as he was attacked by them. This was the power of 2 saints joining forces. It was unstoppable. Longao was not killed by the punch. After all, the Saint of Desolation had helped him to reduce 50% of the power. But even so, Longao still felt that all the internal organs in his body were displaced and his body could fall apart at any time. Not daring to be careless, Longao stopped abruptly. Chapter 494. Shameless. Shameless? Hearing Longao's words, Feng Wui and Lu Buming suddenly burst into laughter. They did not have the slightest bit of shame or guilt. It was as though to them, being shameless was a given. Longao, you will definitely die today. With that, Feng Wui and Lu Buming attacked at the same time, not giving Longao any chance to escape. From the beginning to the end, Longao had never thought of leaving. Otherwise, he would have left at the beginning. He needed to train himself through life and death because he always had a feeling that in order to break through to the illusionary divine stage, the 9 reincarnation technique would require him to experience life and death. This feeling was very strange and indescribable. It was because of this that Longao did not leave and fought with the 2 saints. Longao still chose to meet force with force and fought fiercely with the 2 saints. They exchanged blows, and in less than 2 moves, Longao was once again sent flying. Seeing this, both Feng Wui and Lu Buming were shocked. They did not know if Longao was crazy. He knew that he was no match for the 2 of them, but he still chose to fight head-on. Longao had just been knocked down, but in the blink of an eye, he came back again and chose to attack. Just like this, Longao was beaten down again and again. However, he stood up again and again. His determination told him that if he wanted to break through, he had to persevere. He had to admit that the Saint of Desolation body was very powerful. Even if the two saints attacked continuously, they could not break through the defense of the Saint of Desolation body. Kill. Seeing that they couldn't kill Longao even after joining forces, Feng Wui and Lu Buming were a little anxious, because both of them couldn't figure out why they couldn't kill Longao again and again with their combined strength. If they had not experienced it themselves, they would not have believed it. Longao had been knocked down 10 times, but he still did not choose to give up. However, the difference in their realms was too great. Longao's sacred body of desolation defense alone was not realistic for him to continue resisting. It was precisely because of this that when Feng Wui and Lu Buming joined forces to strike Longao's chest for the 11th time, Longao's entire body was dented and he was sent flying again. This time, Longao did not succeed in standing up. Instead, he quietly fell to the ground. Seeing this situation, both Feng Wui and Lu Buming were overjoyed. They quickly came to Longao's side. As saints, they could clearly sense that Longao had stopped breathing. Tear him to pieces. Suddenly, however, Longao's body disappeared into thin air. That's right, he disappeared into thin air right under the eyes of the two saints. The two saints widened their eyes in disbelief. They could not understand why Longao would disappear into thin air. What exactly happened? Where is Longao? Shaking his head, Feng Wui looked around. The two of them did not dare to be careless and immediately began to search for Longao's traces. Longao lay quietly on the ground. There was no aura coming from his body, which meant that he had already died. However, Longao's soul was still wandering in his body. 9 revolutions reincarnation technique. 1 revolution is equivalent to ascending the heavens. I have finally broken through the 2nd revolution. Longao did not dare to be careless and immediately began to cultivate his soul. Longao had taken a huge gamble this time. If he had lost the gamble, his life would have been in danger. However, the result was that Longao had won the gamble. Not only that, his cultivation had broken through to the illusionary divine stage, and he had also broken through to the 2nd revolution of the 9 revolutions reincarnation technique. It would be a lie to say that he was not surprised. After some time, Longao, who was supposed to be dead, suddenly opened his eyes and sat up. He looked around and his face was filled with surprise and excitement. I have finally broken through to the half-sage stage. All the spiritual energy in Longao's body had been converted into holy energy. However, Longao was not excited about breaking through to the illusionary divine stage. He was excited about the breakthrough of the 9 revolutions reincarnation technique. Longao had always known that the 9 revolutions reincarnation technique was extremely powerful, especially when Long Fu said that the 9 revolutions reincarnation technique was extremely powerful. The 9 revolutions reincarnation technique could defy the heavens and earth. When his master had completed the 9 revolutions reincarnation technique, he would be able to step onto the peak of martial arts. Long Fu was looking forward to seeing his master take that step. The 9 revolutions reincarnation technique was the first revolution of the Yellow Springs. Now that he had broken through to the 2nd revolution, it was the spatial teleportation technique. Longao was extremely surprised to obtain the powerful spatial teleportation technique after breaking through to the 2nd revolution. Let me try. Longao was very clear that with his current strength, it was impossible for him to teleport across a large area. However, teleportation of 1 meter was more than enough. Longao executed the spatial teleportation technique and his body disappeared into thin air. Immediately after, he appeared 1 meter away. The spatial teleportation technique was very simple. It allowed a person to teleport from one place to another. Putting aside the power of the technique, one could imagine how terrifying the spatial teleportation technique was. The only disadvantage of the spatial teleportation technique was that it could not be used continuously. According to the records of the spatial teleportation technique, one had to have a strong soul to be able to teleport continuously. Therefore, with Longao's current soul power, he could only teleport once. However, even so, it was still very powerful. Just think about it. Longao was fighting with a martial artist of the same level. If he suddenly used spatial teleportation, he would be fighting in the same place. Suddenly, he would appear 1 meter away and launch a surprise attack. Just think about it and know what the result would be. Longao was very excited because when he used the spatial teleportation technique, he only felt a spatial fluctuation and his body had already been transferred to another place. If he did not experience it personally, he would not believe it even if he was beaten to death. Longao was very clear that the power of the spatial teleportation technique was far greater than the self-created sorrow of heaven and earth. Longao was looking forward to the remaining realms of the 9 revolutions reincarnation technique. If he could obtain more of such techniques, he would be able to improve quickly. However, in any case, this time, he had fought against 2 saints by himself. Not only did he not die, but his cultivation had also broken through, and he had obtained the spatial teleportation technique. His cultivation had officially broken through to the half-step saint realm. Longao felt that his strength had instantly increased by 10 times. A peak world emperor was indeed incomparable to a beginner half-step saint. The two were not on the same level at all. Longao tried to use the divine dragon's arm. As expected, the breakthrough in his cultivation had more than doubled the power of the divine dragon's arm. In other words, if Longao encountered a half-step saint martial artist at this moment, he could easily obliterate the half-step saint martial artist. As for a saint, he was still unable to contend against them. The gap between a half-step saint and a saint was too big. Longao was very clear in his heart that unless his cultivation could break through to the peak of the half-step saint realm, he would be able to fight against a saint. P.S. The next chapter will officially break through 1 million words. I hope that everyone will tip 1 yuan to congratulate War God Longao for breaking through 1 million words. This way, Xiaoju will also have face. Chapter 495. What the hell? Longao is clearly dead. Why did he suddenly disappear? After searching for an entire day and night, they still could not find any trace of Longao. Both Feng Wui and Lu Buming's faces were extremely gloomy. It seems like Longao is already dead. There is no need for us to continue searching. Let's go. Just as Lu Buming finished speaking, a terrifying sword radiance came slashing towards them, giving them a shock. Regardless of their carelessness, the both of them dodged sideways. However, the cracks in the space around them seemed to be able to swallow everything. If it was a normal half-sage, they would have been swallowed by the cracks in the space around them. However, Feng Wui and Lu Buming were both sages and managed to dodge the cracks. How have the both of you been? Looking at the young man who suddenly appeared in front of them, the both of them were shocked. They did not expect the dead Longao to come back to life and stand in front of them. Longao, I have to admit that you are very lucky to not die. I have always been very lucky. Longao despised the both of them. They had agreed on 10 moves, but the both of them had plotted against him. Otherwise, he would have won. At this point in time, the both of them exclaimed as though they were not sure. You have already broken through to the illusionary divine stage. Thank you. This is all thanks to the both of you. Although they did not want to believe it, the truth was right in front of them. The both of them were completely stunned. They could not understand how Longao was able to break through to the illusionary divine stage. Such talent and potential was too scary. If he was given more time, wouldn't he be able to catch up with them? The more talented Longao was, the more talented he was, the more intense the killing intent of the two was. If one did not remove the roots, they would grow again. Longao, don't think that you can fight us just because you are a half-sage. No matter what happens today, you must die. Hearing this, Longao looked up to the sky and laughed. He did not continue to talk nonsense. Longao's body instantly dashed out. Before he arrived, the terrifying aura of the world had already pressed down fiercely. Longao's intention was very simple. He wanted to use his world aura to suppress the Saint Chi auras of his two opponents. Otherwise, forget about fighting. Just the Saint Chi auras released by his opponents would be enough to overwhelm him. The two of them did not expect that Longao would choose to take the initiative to attack. This time, the two of them did not fight alone. In order to end the battle quickly, the two of them worked together to kill Longao. In the blink of an eye, the two sides were already engaged in a fierce battle. This time, Longao chose to fight 1 against 2, and it was a head-on battle. He wanted to see how strong he was and how big the gap was between him and a saint. As the saying goes, only by knowing yourself and your enemy can you win 100 battles. This time, Longao also wanted to end the battle quickly. As soon as the battle started, he immediately used his self-created martial skills, Sorrow of Heaven and Earth and Devour Blood. Under the double attack, even if the two of them worked together, they would not dare to resist. And at this time, Longao once again used teleportation. His body appeared behind the two of them without any sound. Like a ghost, he lightly patted with his palm. The power seemed ordinary, but in reality, it was very powerful. The two of them were shocked. They did not know what had happened, but the perception of a saint was extremely strong. In an instant, they sensed the terrifying aura behind them. There was no need to look back at all. They had already punched out fiercely. Longao did not choose to continue to fight head-on. He endured the waves of weakness in his mind and used teleportation twice in a row. He directly teleported 2 meters away and left. Feng Wui, Lu Buming, I will slowly settle this score with the Ethereal Palace. You should pray. Ha 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 ha, I will come back for you. As the voice gradually disappeared, Longao's figure had already disappeared without a trace. The two of them did not chase after him. This was because Feng Wui and Lu Buming were already stunned. They stood there dumbfounded, and no one knew what was going on in their minds. How did Longao do it? Teleportation. It seems like only the talent of a Long family can do such a thing. No matter what, this matter cannot be spread out. Otherwise, we will be in big trouble. The two of them were not fools. Of course, they knew that if the news of them killing Longao spread out, the Ethereal Palace would be laughed at. No matter what, this was not a glorious matter. No matter what happens, we must kill this person. Now, let's go and contact the Level 3 Long family and Serene Hell Mansion. We will tell them about this matter. Whether they are willing to join forces or not, it will depend on them. Now that Longao had come back from the dead and had officially broken through to the illusionary divine stage, the two of them were even more fearful of him. They could not wait to kill Longao and get rid of all future troubles. On top of a huge rock, Longao sat cross-legged and quietly recuperated his soul. After this battle with the two sages, Longao was still a little depressed. Although he had broken through to the sage-to-be realm, the difference between him and a sage was still too big. Teleportation. Longao's body suddenly disappeared, and in the next second, he appeared 1 meter away. Longao was very satisfied with the power of teleportation. He stood up and stretched his back. In the 8 realms of the illusionary divine stage, from the lowest to the highest, they were half-sage, sage, earth sage, sky sage, sage king, sage emperor, sage venerable, and sage emperor. Longao was well aware that he had just broken through to the illusionary divine stage and was considered to be at the lowest level of the illusionary divine stage. Let's not talk about sage kings, sage reverends, and other powerful beings. Even a sage would not be his match. There were 4 levels of sage-to-be martial artists: beginner sage-to-be, intermediate sage-to-be, advanced sage-to-be, and peak sage-to-be. Longao did not continue to stay in the spirit domain of the 9 continents and rushed back to his family. Along the way, he had already spread the news and was 1 step ahead of the Ethereal Palace. Longao's meaning was very simple. This time, Feng Wui and Lu Buming intercepted him halfway, which was considered as violating the 1-year agreement. If the Ethereal Palace spread the news first, he would be in a very passive position at that time. He was afraid that he would be put on the spot. The news that Longao had spread across the 9 continents and 2 domains. Those who heard the news all scolded the Ethereal Palace for being a jerk. As one of the 4 major forces, they had broken the 1-year agreement with Longao. Based on this alone, the Ethereal Palace had become despicable. Since the Ethereal Palace had become despicable, Longao had become a gentleman. Because of this, There were people scolding the ethereal palace and praising Longao, causing the ethereal palace to be extremely depressed. P.S. I apologize in advance. The plot was stuck this afternoon. I thought about it for the entire afternoon and sat in front of the computer in a daze. Now that everything has cleared up, I will do my best to update the plot. Everyone, please forgive me. Chapter 496. Longao Peak. Underground, in a deep cave. Senior Prince, I beg you to spare me. I can follow you. The divine soul knelt down and begged for mercy, his body trembling slightly like a mouse seeing a cat. It turned out that the divine soul was not a divine realm martial artist, but a void god martial artist with the lowest strength among the divine realm martial artists. It was just that the divine soul wanted Longao to take him away, so he made up a lie. The prince was a real divine realm martial artist. When the prince was ambushed by the enemy and died on Longao Peak, he was afraid of being found by the enemy, so he had no choice but to seal his divine soul. The prince had been recovering from the damage to his divine soul, but it was easier said than done. Because of this, the prince sensed the existence of the divine soul and directly chose to devour it. If it was not for some reason, the divine soul would have been devoured and refined by now. You are a divine realm martial artist of the Wansho sect? Yes, senior. When I was driven out of the Wansho sect and accidentally died, I had no choice but to seal myself. Why don't you enter reincarnation? Once a martial artist broke through to the divine realm, even if they died, their divine soul could enter reincarnation and have a great chance of being reborn, but the cultivation would have to start from scratch. Senior Prince, I believe you should know that once our divine soul enters reincarnation, 90% of it will disappear. Even if we are lucky enough to enter reincarnation, the cultivation will have to start from scratch. The prince instantly understood the divine soul's meaning, nodded and said, If I devour you, I don't know what the effect will be. Hearing this, the divine soul was so scared that his body trembled violently. He kowtowed and begged for mercy. In front of a divine realm martial artist, the divine soul had no power to resist. After all, void god and divine realm martial artists were not on the same level. It was like a child standing in front of an adult. How could he resist? But I changed my mind. Hearing this, the divine soul was not happy at all, but his heart thumped because he did not know what the divine prince in front of him wanted. The divine soul did not dare to ask or speak. Someone is coming. Longao, who had just returned to Longao Peak, immediately released his aura in an attempt to sense the existence of this mysterious supreme Tao expert. Longao was not a fool. He knew very well in his heart that if this divine realm martial artist was really hostile to him or his family, he would have already made his move. According to the strength of the divine realm martial artist, if he wanted to destroy himself and his family, it was simply a simple matter. But no matter how Longao sensed, he was unable to sense any divine Tao aura from start to finish. Longao was very clear that the reason why he was unable to sense the existence of the divine Tao aura was mainly because his strength was too low. The half-saint realm was even less than an ant in front of a celestial god. Little friend, since you're here, please come down. A voice resounded in Longao's mind. Before he could figure out what was going on, he found that his body had been enveloped by a divine Tao aura. In the next second, Longao appeared in a deep and serene cave. There were only 2 divine souls in the entire cave. Of course, he knew one of them. It was the divine soul Shangongyuan that he had brought out of the imperial city's Soul Break Valley and had almost devoured Kwang Ao's soul. He was also the divine path warrior of the Wansho sect. You're the master of the dragon sect, Longao? Longao was not surprised that the divine soul in front of him knew him. In any case, he and his family had only moved to Longao Peak later. He believed that the divine soul in front of him had already existed for a long time. You can call me Prince. I believe you should know this one. Longao nodded and said, Senior Prince, I didn't know you were at Longao Peak. Otherwise, I wouldn't have moved here. But since this is Senior's territory, I will lead my family away from Longao Peak later. Longao Peak? That's a very good name. Longao. I've been quite lonely here for so many years. It's good to have you and your family as company. You don't have to move away. Hearing this, Longao was overjoyed. At this moment, he was completely sure that the divine soul in front of him had no malice towards him and his family. If that was the case, it might not be a bad thing. Longao was not a fool. Of course, he knew what a divine soul represented. Once he became friends with a divine soul, even if the four great forces attacked him in the future, he would not have to fear them. Glancing at Shang Gongyuan not far away, Long Ao felt contempt in his heart. Shang Gongyuan had obviously deceived him. He didn't want to pass on his divine soul to others, but wanted him to bring him out. Long Ao, please sit. Thank you, Senior Prince. Long Ao didn't stand on ceremony. He found a boulder and sat down. Without any hesitation, he got straight to the point and said, "Thank you, Senior. Otherwise, my good brother would have been killed by this person. There's no need to be polite. Although I don't oppose divine souls possessing a body and being reborn, what Shang Gongyuan did was indeed a little unkind. Shang Gongyuan, tell me, how will you explain this?" Hearing the prince's words, Shang Gongyuan cursed in his heart. But because of the prince's strength, he could only obediently comply. Otherwise, there was only one fate for him, and that was to be devoured by the divine soul. Senior Prince, after sealing myself for so many years, I admit that I really want to seize a divine soul and be reborn. As the saying goes, the winner is the king and the loser is the bandit. Since Long Ao believed me, he can only blame himself for being stupid and not me. I wonder if Senior Prince is willing to admit this? I admit it. Without waiting for the prince to speak, Long Ao had already taken the lead and said, "I don't deny that the winner is the king and the loser is the bandit. I also admit that I chose to believe you and I deserve to be deceived. But Shang Gongyuan, you have to remember one thing. You shouldn't have devoured my brother's soul. So, I will settle this debt with you. No matter what, you have to give me an explanation." "Give you an explanation?" Shang Gongyuan sneered. In his opinion, a puny world emperor wasn't even worth a fart in his eyes. If he wanted to kill him, it would be as easy as flipping his hand. Ridicule, disdain, contempt, all sorts of expressions appeared. Shang Gongyuan smiled and said, "If Senior Prince wasn't here to support you, I'd like to ask you, would you still dare to speak to me like this? In the end, you're just a piece of trash." Provocation. Shang Gongyuan wasn't an idiot. Of course, he knew that if the prince stood on Long Ao's side, then he would be in trouble. So, he could only use provocation to make the prince care about his face and not act against him. Whether it was the prince or Long Ao, they naturally knew what Shang Gongyuan meant. Because of this, the two of them looked down on Shang Gongyuan in their hearts. P.S. Congratulations to the prince and Shang Gongyuan for becoming the number 1 and number 2 on the fan list. Little 90,000 thanks. Chapter 497. Shang Gongyuan, what do you want? Long Ao knew that Shang Gongyuan was not afraid of him, but of the God of Heaven Prince in front of him. The God of Heaven Prince smiled and did not speak. Shang Gongyuan looked at him with disdain and said, "Long Ao, if you have the guts, fight me fairly. If you win, you can do whatever you want of me. If you lose, you can kill yourself immediately. How about that?" Hearing what Shang Gongyuan said, not only did Long Ao laugh, but the God of Heaven Prince also laughed. A fair fight? A supreme Dao warrior wanted to have a fair fight with a sage to be warrior. Could such a fight be considered a fair fight? Long Ao, you don't dare? Long Ao laughed and suddenly said, "I have seen many shameless people. You are the most shameless. Shang Gongyuan, you are a disgrace to the Wanshou sect." The Wanshou sect was obviously Shang Gongyuan's weak spot. When he heard Long Ao mention the Wanshou sect, his face instantly became furious. If it wasn't for the fact that he was afraid of the divine soul beside him, Shang Gongyuan believed that at this moment, he would have already attacked. Shang Gongyuan, what orders does Senior Prince have? Shang Gongyuan was afraid of the God of Heaven. He was afraid that the God of Heaven would devour his soul. If that was the case, he would not even have the chance to reincarnate. I will not say much about the fair fight you mentioned just now. I know that you are not convinced. How about this? I will arrange a fair fight for the both of you. How about that? F*CKU. Shang Gongyuan cursed in his heart, but he did not dare to show his dissatisfaction. He nodded and said with a smile, I believe in Senior Prince. Shang Gongyuan was a cunning old fox. He used words to stop the god of heaven from siding with Longao. This way, he would not have to be afraid of anything. The divine Tao was the most powerful existence in the world. Even empty god martial artists were not comparable to illusionary divine martial artists. The difference between the illusionary divine stage and the divine Tao stage was like heaven and earth. The difference between the two was too great, and they were not even on the same level. It was because of this that Shang Gongyuan was confident. No matter what, he was not afraid of Longao. Longao, do you have a problem? No. Longao didn't even think about it and directly agreed. He didn't know why, but he always had a feeling that the prince in front of him had an indescribable feeling for him. This feeling couldn't be expressed with words. Shang Gongyuan, I am very fair. Now, I will forcibly suppress your spirit realm to the half-saint realm. In this way, the battle between you two can be called fair. What do you think? Shang Gongyuan was startled. His cultivation had been forcibly suppressed to the semi-sage realm. So, it would be a lie if he said that he wasn't worried. However, Shang Gongyuan clearly knew that he didn't have any other choice since the matter had already reached this point. Otherwise, he wouldn't even have the opportunity to regret once the prince started a massacre and devoured his spirit. Thinking of this, Shang Gongyuan nodded and agreed. I have no problem. Let's see if Longao dares to accept the challenge. In fact, Shang Gongyuan was still very confident in his heart. This was because he believed that even if his cultivation was forcefully suppressed, it was still impossible for his opponent to be his match. After all, when two martial artists of the same level fought, they relied on actual combat experience and other factors. Senior, I have no problem with that either. Well, in that case, let's begin. As soon as the prince finished speaking, Shang Gongyuan felt his spirit tremble. Then, his cultivation rapidly dropped. In the blink of an eye, it had dropped to the so-called half-saint realm. In this way, Shang Gongyuan had also become a half-saint spirit. Heaving a sigh of relief, Longao increasingly felt that the prince seemed to be taking care of him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have suppressed Shang Gongyuan's spirit realm. In any case, if other people were to choose between himself and a spirit of the divine path, everyone would 100% choose him. Longao, wait a moment. I will let you know what is called disparity and what is called trash. Go to hell. Longao simply didn't want to talk nonsense with the prince. He rushed out like an arrow. In order to end the battle quickly, Longao directly used his self-created martial technique, Sorrow of the Heavens and Earth, and integrated the imposing aura of the heavens and earth. There was no tornado this time. Longao knew very well that the best way to defeat a spirit was to use a soul attack. However, if he used a soul attack at the beginning, there was an 80% chance of success. It was because of this that Longao chose to advance in order to retreat. The imposing aura of the heavens and earth, you are nirvana. Before Shang Gongyuan finished speaking, the imposing aura of the heavens and earth released by Longao directly enveloped him. At this time, an illusory dragon shadow appeared behind Longao. Then, a dragon's roar resounded throughout the cave. Innate remarkable ability, Dragon's Roar. Seeing Longao use his innate remarkable ability, the prince seemed to be a little excited. His body began to tremble because of excitement. His face was full of surprise. He wanted to say something, but in the end, he restrained himself. Innate remarkable ability? Impossible. This is impossible. Shang Gongyuan roared. As a supreme Tao warrior, of course, Shang Gongyuan knew what Longao released. Innate remarkable ability, the most powerful innate martial technique of the Long family. However, in order to awaken the innate remarkable ability, one must go to the Long family ancestral hall. As everyone knew, In order to enter the Long family ancestral hall for baptism, one must be at least level 3. Strictly speaking, only level 2 or level 1 Long family disciples could do it. As for level 6 Long family disciples, they didn't even need to think about it. In that case, how could Longao release his innate remarkable ability? What in the world was going on? Could it be that his eyes were playing tricks on him? Before Shang Gongyuan could recover from his shock, he was shocked to find that his body was actually locked. Moreover, the flow of time around him began to reverse, causing Shang Gongyuan to almost collapse. Kill. Of course, Longao would not let go of this rare opportunity. If Shang Gongyuan's original strength was at its peak, Longao would definitely not be his opponent. However, the situation now was completely different. Shang Gongyuan's realm had been forcefully suppressed by the prince. Therefore, Longao had full confidence that he could completely disregard anyone of the same level as him. However, at this moment, the prince's voice suddenly sounded in Longao's mind. The meaning was simple. Don't kill Shang Gongyuan, just teach him a lesson. Although Longao did not know what the prince meant, he still chose to agree. No matter what, the prince had saved Kwang Ao. Moreover, if the prince had not sided with him, he would not have been able to defeat Shang Gongyuan. He would not have had the slightest chance. This was the difference between an illusionary divine stage martial artist and a supreme Tao warrior. Although he couldn't kill, he could still get lucky. With a chuckle, Longao directly used the mystical dragon arm and started to punch Shang Gongyuan. He used all his strength and did not hold back. Chapter 498. Longao's divine dragon arm merged with the aura of heaven and earth. He didn't hold back at all. His fists were as fast as lightning. In just a few seconds, he had already punched hundreds of times, causing Shang Gongyuan to scream in pain. Enough. Longao wasn't willing to stop, but since the senior prince had said so, he didn't continue and retreated reluctantly. If Shang Gongyuan was in the divine path realm, Longao wouldn't have taken action. He knew his limits. However, Shang Gongyuan's current situation was completely different. His realm was suppressed by the senior prince. He wasn't afraid of anyone in the same realm. Longao, I'm going to kill you. If it wasn't for the senior prince, I would have killed you right now. Hearing the cold voice, Shang Gongyuan didn't know why he shivered. He wanted to say something, but he didn't say it in the end. Shang Gongyuan, the winner takes all. Since you've already lost, you have to admit it. I know. He wasn't convinced at all. In Shang Gongyuan's opinion, if he wasn't suppressed by the senior prince, would a puny Longao be his opponent? However, the senior prince was obviously siding with Longao. Shang Gongyuan wasn't a fool. How could he not see it? He had to suffer in silence, unable to voice out his bitterness. He could only curse in his heart. Shang Gongyuan, I'll settle this later. Go and rest first. Then, regardless of whether Shang Gongyuan was willing or not, an aura shot out from the senior prince and shrouded Shang Gongyuan. Just like that, Shang Gongyuan disappeared into thin air. Old ancestor. You've already guessed it? The senior prince was surprised because he didn't expect the young man in front of him to have already guessed his identity. After all, he didn't have time to announce his identity. Nodding, Longao said helplessly, I can clearly sense that we have a bloodline connection. Moreover, old ancestor is obviously siding with me this time. Otherwise, I would have been killed by Shang Gongyuan. Ha ha ha, good, good, good. After saying the word good 3 times, the senior prince's face was full of praise. That's right, I'm Longbatian. As expected. Although Longao had already guessed the prince's true identity, he could not help but feel shocked. According to his grandfather, the old ancestor had already fallen, and his big brother had obtained the old ancestor's legacy. But now, not only was the old ancestor standing in front of him alive, he was also a heavenly god. What was going on? Ancestor. To be honest, not long ago, grandfather gave the succession of the martial monarch to my brother. Why are you here? Longao couldn't figure it out, but Longbatian nodded with a smile and said, the inheritance of the great emperor in the family isn't my inheritance. It's just that I killed an enemy and forcefully stripped his inheritance. Hearing the old ancestor's words, Longao swallowed his saliva fiercely. It was too ruthless. It could actually strip away the inheritance of a great sovereign expert. He believed that even a supreme Tao expert might not be able to do this. The inheritance was very simple. Unless one was willing to do so, it was impossible to forcefully take it away. No matter what, I'm glad that you didn't inherit the martial monarch's legacy. You're the disciple with the most potential in our Long family. No matter what, you have to break through to the Supreme Tao realm. Supreme Tao realm? Could it be the heavenly God realm? Long Batian did not continue to speak, and Long Ao did not continue to ask, because he knew very well in his heart that if the old ancestor wanted to say, there was no need for him to ask. But if he did not want to say, the old ancestor would not say it no matter what. Tell me about the current situation of the family. Long Ao was full of respect for the old ancestor before him. According to his grandfather, the old ancestor Long Batian was a peerless genius that only appeared once in 1,000 years. Long family was jealous of him because of his brilliance, which eventually led to the death of the old ancestor. Long Ao didn't hide anything from the old ancestor. He told him about the current situation of the family in detail. After listening, Long Batian seemed to be very satisfied. He wasn't worried at all and said, "Go ahead and do it. Although I can't leave this mountain, I can guarantee the safety of the family. You're only a sage to be now. So there's only one thing that you have to do now, and that is to increase your strength as soon as possible." Before Long Ao could finish his words, Long Batian continued, the great thousand world is full of powerful people. What you see now is only the tip of the iceberg, so you have to increase your strength as soon as possible and develop the power of the family. Long Ao nodded. Of course, he knew what the old ancestor was talking about. The world was full of powerful people. The illusionary divine realm, the great emperor realm, the supreme Tao realm. Long Ao knew that he still had a long way to go. Old ancestor, I will definitely do it. All right, I believe you. I didn't let you kill Shang Gongyuan just now because I was prepared to take away his supreme Tao inheritance and pass it on. However, I won't give Shang Gongyuan's supreme Tao inheritance to that friend of yours. Long Ao had already guessed this point. This was because the old ancestor valued the family more than him. He would rather find an unsuitable disciple to inherit the supreme Tao inheritance than give it to an outsider. Long Ao knew that he believed in domineering arrogance because he saw domineering arrogance as a brother. However, others didn't think so, especially the old ancestor. Long Ao knew clearly about the old ancestor's worries. Once domineering arrogance accepted the inheritance and became a supreme Tao expert, wouldn't the family suffer a double loss if domineering arrogance were to leave the family? It was because of this that Long Ao didn't blame the old ancestor. He knew that no matter who it was, they would do the same. It was understandable that they would do it for the family. Old ancestor, who are you going to give the supreme Tao inheritance to? We'll talk about this later. First, I need to take away Shang Gongyuan's supreme Tao inheritance. It seems simple, but it's actually very difficult. It will take at least a few months and at most a few years. Long Ao nodded. Although he didn't know how difficult it would be to take away the inheritance, he could totally imagine it. At this time, Long Batian suddenly said, I will now pass the inheritance to you. Remember, if you want the family to develop thoroughly, you must first increase the strength of everyone in the family. Taking away the inheritance, Long Ao never thought that the old ancestor would pass the inheritance to him. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't surprised. After all, after cultivating the inheritance, other than refining soul slaves and corpse slaves, he could also take away the inheritance by force. At this speed, the family would develop very quickly. At that time, they could also prepare to move in with the Long family. P.S. Congratulations to Shang Gongyuan for becoming a Hall Master. This is also the first Hall Master in this book. I hope there will be the first Protector, Elder, Sect Master, and Master. Little Nine is looking forward to the birth of the first Alliance Master. At that time, I will give you my chrysanthemum. Hee hee. Chapter 499. Next, Longao devoted himself to cultivating the skill of stripping inheritance. After an unknown period of time, Shangongyuan, do you know the relationship between me and Longao? Shaking his head, Shangongyuan answered curiously, I don't know. Please enlighten me. I'm from the Long family. Long Batian did not continue, but Shangongyuan was not a fool. Of course, he understood what he meant. Before Shangongyuan could recover from his shock, his soul was devoured. Long Batian was an heavenly god while Shangongyuan was only an empty god. The difference between the two was too great. Aoer, don't tell anyone about me. Do you understand? Understood. Of course, Long Ao knew what the old ancestor meant. He turned and left the cave, returning to his family. Only then did the Long family know that Long Ao had returned. Long Ao did not tell anyone about the old ancestor. He only chatted with his grandfather, parents, and Aoshue. He did not even mention anything about the ethereal palace. Feng Wui and Lu Bumming returned to the ethereal palace and immediately joined forces with the level 3 Long family and Nether Mansion to fight against the dragon sect. But what made the ethereal palace furious was that no matter how hard they tried, the two forces would not agree to it. The reason was simple. This was the grudge between the ethereal palace and the dragon sect. It had nothing to do with them. The Nether Mansion and level 3 Long family were not fools. Since the ethereal palace was so anxious, something must have happened. If the ethereal palace was determined to fight against the dragon sect, even if they did not join forces, they believed that the ethereal palace would do the same. If that was the case, why should they look for trouble? The ethereal palace knew what the Nether Mansion and level 3 Long family were thinking, but there was nothing they could do. Just by themselves? If there were no other three forces, the ethereal palace would not be afraid of the dragon sect. Even if there were 10 or 100 dragon sects, the ethereal palace would not be afraid. But the situation was completely different now. Once the ethereal palace took action against the dragon sect, not to mention that both sides would suffer losses, the ethereal palace's attention would be diverted by the dragon sect. By then, they would be in big trouble. The ethereal palace knew very well that the Nether Mansion and the level 3 Long Ao couldn't wait for the ethereal palace and the dragon sect to fight to the death. When the time came, they would be able to reap the benefits. In the end, the ethereal palace also chose to endure. The ethereal palace did not make a move, but the dragon sect did. The Snake Emperor led an army of corpse slaves and began a crusade against the 9 states. Those who did not submit were directly destroyed. They were vicious and merciless, and the battle ended quickly. The 9 states were the Sky State, the Earth State, the Sun State, the Moon State, the Sunset State, the Cloud State, the Crimson State, the Illusion State, and the Black Forest State. With Tianzhou as the center, the dragon sect spread out. Their first target was Yunzhou. No matter what, the number 1 sect in Yunzhou, the so-called Yunzhou sect, had been destroyed by the dragon sect. Compared to the other 7 states, Yunzhou was much easier to deal with. Long Ao gave all the power to the Snake Emperor. The Snake Emperor seemed to want to prove to others, especially the ethereal palace that had abandoned him. He wanted to let the ethereal palace know that their decision back then was wrong. As for the Snake Emperor's intention, how could Long Ao not know? It was also because of this that he gave the power to the Snake Emperor alone. He wanted to stimulate the Snake Emperor's fighting spirit and speed up the pace of conquering the 9 states. There were countless forces in the 9 states. It was not an easy task to conquer them one by one. The Snake Emperor also recognized this point, so he made an example of them. One had to admit that the method of making an example of them was very effective. As long as the Snake Emperor led the corpse slave army to destroy a force, the surrounding forces would definitely be frightened. In addition to the Snake Emperor's coercion, the Cloud State and the Crimson State were conquered in just a month. When the news reached the Dragon Sect, everyone in the Dragon Sect was extremely excited. However, at this time, the Ethereal Palace's forces suddenly intervened. They did not directly clash with the Snake Emperor and occupied the other states. Long Ao was already prepared for the Ethereal Palace's sudden intervention. This was because Feng Wui and Lu Bumming did not succeed in killing him this time. He believed that the Ethereal Palace would definitely not let it go. At the very least, they would have to regain their face. Otherwise, where would the ethereal palace's face go? According to the Snake Emperor, since the ethereal palace dared to intervene in this matter, they would definitely not let it go. Not to mention the problem of face. Once the ethereal palace occupied a few states, it would be extremely difficult for the dragon sect to take them back in the future. However, at this time, Longao urgently called the Snake Emperor back to the sect, which made the Snake Emperor very unhappy. However, no matter what, the master of the dragon sect was Longao and not him. No matter how great his power was, it could not be greater than Longao's. It was because of this that the Snake Emperor had no choice but to bring the corpse slave army back to the sect. The Snake Emperor, who had just returned to the sect, had already received the news that the master had withdrawn from the Cloud State and the Crimson State. The Snake Emperor was furious. He could not understand why the master would withdraw his forces from the Cloud State and the Crimson State. He was not willing to give away the empire that he had fought so hard for just like that. Dragon Sect, Main Hall. Master, I have something to ask you. Why did you withdraw your forces from the Cloud State and the Crimson State? The Snake Emperor's attitude was extremely bad, which made the surrounding people furious. Ouyang Fei said angrily, Snake Emperor, don't go too far. You are only an elder of the sect, not the master of the sect. The master does not need to go through you for anything. The Snake Emperor also knew that his attitude just now was a little too much. No matter what, Longao was still the master. There was a huge difference in status between the two. Just as Ouyang Fei said, the master did not need to go through him for any decision. However, the Snake Emperor was not willing to give away the empire that he had fought so hard for just like that. He believed that no matter who it was, they would not be able to accept this fact, let alone him. Longao smiled, waved his hand and said, Elder Snake, please take a seat. Taking a deep breath, the Snake Emperor bowed respectfully and said, I was reckless just now. Master, I really don't understand why the Cloud State and the Crimson State that we have fought so hard for have to be withdrawn. Longao stopped Ouyang Fei, who was about to speak again, and said with a smile, the reason is very simple. I don't want to go head-to-head with the ethereal palace. The reason why Longao was not angry was that he knew very well that the Snake Emperor was doing this for the good of the sect. Otherwise, he would have already lost his temper with the Snake Emperor's attitude just now. As the master of a sect, he must do what he should do and resolutely not do what he should not do. Only in this way could he make everyone in the sect obey him. It could be said that Longao was the soul of the dragon sect. Usually, they could not feel it. Once something happened to Longao, the dragon sect would not be able to hold on. Elder Snake, I don't need to say more about the strength of the ethereal palace. I believe that you know it 10,000 times better than all of us. I want to ask, if we go head-to-head, even if we have the corpse slave army, can we go against the ethereal palace? Chapter 500. As the former palace master of the ethereal palace, no one knew the situation of the ethereal palace better than the Snake Emperor. The Snake Emperor knew very well that any one of the four major forces was not incompetent. Otherwise, the four major forces would not have been able to dominate the 9-state spirit domain. The Snake Emperor's expression was very ugly. No matter what, he was unwilling to accept it. Apart from being unwilling, it was more that he had lost the opportunity to witness himself. Back then, the ethereal palace had chased him out. He would never forget it for the rest of his life. Therefore, the Snake Emperor wanted to tell the ethereal palace that they would regret losing him. Longao knew clearly what the Snake Emperor meant. However, for the sake of the big picture, he could not only care about one person. Elder Snake, with our current strength, there is no need to go head-on with the ethereal palace. When we find the right opportunity, we can just stomp them back. There is no need to be so quick. He was startled. Hearing the master's words, the Snake Emperor understood what he meant. Master, I was wrong. Waving his hand, Longao smiled and said, there is no need to take responsibility. The sect will help you with the grudge between you and the ethereal palace. After hearing Longao's words, it would be a lie to say that he was not moved, especially when the dragon sect was compared to the ethereal palace. The difference was like heaven and earth. Master, what should we do next? The ethereal palace had already shown their attitude by interfering in the 9 states. Just as the master said, if they chose to go head-on, the sect would not be able to gain the slightest advantage. Everyone looked at Longao. After all, this was not a small matter. Losing the 9 states was a small matter, but implicating the sect was a big matter. Longao had already thought about the matter of the ethereal palace interfering in the 9 states. After coughing twice, Longao said, "Since the ethereal palace wants the 9 states so much, then we will fulfill their wish. From now on, the sect will not allow anyone to interfere in the 9 states." Longao had almost guessed the ethereal palace's intention. With the lessons learned from the previous few times, it was believed that the ethereal palace would not dare to come to the sect. Since that was the case, the ethereal palace only had one way, and that was to intervene in the 9 provinces. Without giving anyone a chance to speak, Longao had already stood up and left, leaving everyone behind. You look at me, I look at you. You have no idea what the sect master meant. Ao, what are you going to do? Longao was preparing to leave Tianzhou, so before he left, he returned to his family. However, he only told his grandfather Longhaoyan about this. As for the others, he didn't even tell his parents. He was afraid that his parents, Aoshue, and the others would be worried. Longao didn't hide anything from his grandfather. Grandpa, previously, Feng Wui and Lu Buming violated the agreement and tried to kill me halfway. This time, they interfered in the affairs of the 9 prefectures. If I were to sit and wait for my death, the ethereal palace would think that I'm afraid of them. The ethereal palace is one of the 4 major forces. Its foundation and strength are there. If you act rashly this time, what if? Although Long Haosher didn't finish his words, the meaning of his words was very clear. No matter what, there were saints in the ethereal palace. If his grandson went there openly, would it be easy to fight? However, Longao was full of confidence. He said confidently, "Grandpa, don't worry. I won't act rashly. Since I can't do it openly, I'll do it secretly." Long Haosher was also an old fox. He instantly understood his grandson's meaning. Long Haosher was very confident in his grandson. With Long Ao's current strength as a half-saint, if he chose to assassinate, he believed that even the saints of the ethereal palace couldn't do anything to Long Ao. Of course, Long Haosher knew that Long Ao had the spatial teleportation. Otherwise, he wouldn't have agreed so easily. Spatial teleportation. Until now, Long Haosher still couldn't believe that Ao had the spatial teleportation. In this world, there was actually such a heaven-defying martial skill. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he wouldn't have believed it. "Grandpa, the ethereal palace won't let me leave this time. If nothing goes wrong, the ethereal palace will definitely come to assassinate the people of the family and the sect. So, Grandpa, you must keep an eye on everyone and forbid anyone from leaving." Long Ao wasn't very worried about the safety of the family as long as the disciples of the family didn't leave the Long Ao peak. For the sake of safety, Long Ao invited the fire Kylan from the family to the dragon sect. In any case, the old ancestor Long Ao was at the foot of the Long Ao peak. Unless the ethereal palace directly sent out divine realm experts, who else could be the old ancestor's opponent? I understand. From the beginning to the end, Long Ao didn't tell his grandpa about the old ancestor's matter, including anyone else. After settling everything, Long Ao immediately got up and left. With the help of the teleportation formation, he quietly entered the 9 states spirit domain. If it was in the past when the dragon sect didn't have the teleportation formation, it would be too difficult for Long Ao to do this. However, the situation now was completely different. After entering the 9 states spirit domain, Long Ao didn't return to the city of Sin. Instead, he went straight to the north. There were 4 major forces in the 9 states spirit domain. They were the East Royal City, the Long family in the west, the Netherhell Mansion in the south, and the ethereal palace in the north. The main reason Longao entered the nine-state spirit domain this time was the ethereal palace. This time, Feng Wui and Lu Buming violated the one-year agreement, which made Longao furious. He didn't care about anything else and was prepared to assassinate the disciples of the ethereal palace. It would be great to kill one, or even a couple. In this way, Longao began to assassinate. With his current strength, unless it was a saint, even a half-saint warrior couldn't escape from Longao's assassination. In Baishun, a half-saint warrior of the ethereal palace, was considered the most powerful elder in the outer sect. He usually lived in the ethereal city and helped the ethereal palace to manage all the affairs of the outer sect. As soon as Longao stepped into the ethereal city, he directly targeted the most powerful elder in the ethereal city. Longao knew very well that if he wanted the ethereal palace to suffer, he had to assassinate powerful elders and talented disciples. Otherwise, assassinating ordinary disciples would be useless. Because of this, Longao directly targeted the most powerful elder in the ethereal city, In Baishun. As the largest city of the ethereal palace, the ethereal city was extremely prosperous. After entering the city, Longao didn't immediately take action because he disguised himself a little this time. Ordinary people wouldn't be able to recognize him at all. Longao didn't want to alert the enemy immediately. After all, there were many experts in the ethereal palace. Once he was discovered, not to mention continuing the assassination, it would be a problem whether he could leave the ethereal city safely. Because of this, Longao prepared to do it quietly. After entering the ethereal city, Longao began to observe In Baishun's comings and goings. After asking around, he almost grasped the general idea of In Baishun. In other words, Longao was full of confidence. P.S. Congratulations to the first Guardian Noble Shamate for becoming a Guardian. Little Nine's chrysanthemum is yours. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.